Would you all come in and join us? Thank you, John. So I'd like to call the January 17th meeting of the William S. Hart High School District to order at 7:15. Would you reestablish the quorum for us, please, Debbie?
Mr. Jensen?
Present.
Mr. Messina?
Here.
Dr. Moore?
Present.
Mrs. Wilson?
Here.
Mrs. Storley?
Here.
And student board member?
Here.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. We have nothing to report out from the executive meeting, so I believe now we'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance. Who should we? I think we should have the principal of Canyon High School do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Move to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, I have to ask you separately.
Aye.
Thank you. Student board member?
Aye.
Asked? I'm sorry. I had a second where I was wondering, I have to say my vote also, so the president votes yes. Do we have a motion for the minutes? And we have two different dates, but we can do them together?
You like them together?
Sure, please.
Move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 6th, 2023 and December 13th, 2023.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Moore, second by Mr. Jensen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
And the president says aye. Thank you. Next on our agenda is recognition by board and Mr. Crawford.
Thank you and good evening, Governing Board and Mr. Kuhlman, for the opportunity to once again recognize one of our outstanding programs. And tonight, it's the West Ranch Marching Band, who this year captured the Southern California School Band and Orchestra Association Championship 4A title. Now, as you know, the Hart District has had an amazing reputation within the marching band community, with multiple bands from this district winning championships over the years. And this year's title for the Wildcats marks the sixth time that West Ranch has earned the top spot. These talented young people have worked hard over many hours during the summer and fall to make this championship a reality. The students are supported by an incredible group of dedicated staff and coaches, along with a tremendous parent booster group that makes it all happen behind the scenes. Now, if you've never seen a high school marching band competition, you should take the chance. Along with the amazing musicianship performed by the students on the field, you will see an army of adults hauling instruments, equipment, props, and all sorts of things. And for West Ranch, this is all wonderfully orchestrated under the direction of second-year West Ranch band director, Mr. Rod Schuler. I would now like to invite Rod up to talk about this amazing group.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's my first year at West Ranch, so I'm a rookie. I actually won a state championship in my first semester, so I like to set the bar high. Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here tonight as Director of Instrumental Music at West Ranch and Director of the Wildcat Marching Band. I'll tell all of you exactly what I told our students after we had been declared 4A champions in our celebration afterwards. You can have a great show concept, which we had. You can have a great design team to take that concept and kind of bring it to life. You can have a great instructional staff, which I am really blessed to have, great instrument coaches, great caption heads in color guard and percussion, choreography, and so on. And you can have a great booster organization. We are blessed to have that. Hardworking parents that really make our program go. But really, at the end of the day, what you need above all of that are talented, dedicated, hardworking, focused, responsible, and energetic, driven students. And that is what led to our success this year. So I'm really, really grateful. Tonight, we are blessed to have some of our student leadership team here to take part in this recognition, and our principal, of course, Robert Fisher, who's been a great support system for me through the fall semester and now into the spring of my first year at West Ranch. So thank you to these students, and thank you to the board. And in fact, board, tonight I would like to gift all of you one of our gold medals from the championship. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, these are some of our section leaders, and color guard captains are here tonight. A couple of our drum majors are here. So we have a little cross section along with that.
Would you like to maybe introduce them one at a time and they can come by and say hello?
Sure. So we have, I'll just go, we've got Jacob Hahn from clarinet. We have our senior drum major, Anderson Bowe. Alto saxophone section leader, Ariel Hoffman. Nice job. Sousaphone section leader, Brody Carl. This is color guard captain Emma Orlick. Color guard captain Holly Hinsey. Drum major, Erica Chan. Flute section leader, Jessica O'Brien. Flute section leader, Allison Choi. Percussion section leader, Lisa Kim. Percussion section leader, Riley. And then Riley Malari Hernandez, one of our drum majors as well.
Can we all get together for a picture? Sure. We need like 3 rows.
Make sure all the tall people stand by me.
Robert, come on in. Not an excuse, Mr. Fisher. That's right, that's right. You're good, Shelley. Don't worry about it. It was just a... Congratulations, West Ranch Band.
Thank you very much. Are we clearing the room? Okay. I'd like to call on Dara to give her board report.
Yeah, I would like to say congratulations to the West Ranch Marching Band for their achievements. But for my report, I also like to say thank you to the CCR and CTE program because it is their month, I'm pretty sure. And I just like to say thank you for their efforts and also to the teachers because they've made an enormous impact on the students for just career readiness and then also just for career tech readiness. So thank you to them. And for winter sports, it has been up and running. The Canyon Girls varsity just beat West Ranch today, and then also Saugus won Valencia's boys varsity. So there's a lot of games going on across town. For soccer, today GV actually won Castaic. And I also attended a GV soccer game last week, and we were in a tie against West Ranch 3-3. So that was pretty fun to watch. For high school dances, we're all kind of selling tickets for the winter dances and winter formal. Something that GV is doing is we are inviting AOC to also come to our dance. So they're going to be basically like a part of our dance kind of. And that'd be really fun just to see. I know a lot of my friends and also just a lot of students are excited to see AOC come to the dance. And then also Valencia will be doing a February Fest or a Feb Fest, which will be kind of more informal, but a lot kind of chic too. And I know that a lot of students are excited for that. And then also West Ranch is doing a wellness week this week where they're doing a lot of stress relieving activities. And they're also doing like a pet wall where people can put their pictures of their pet on a wall, which is really fun. And then also a lot of seniors are just applying for the Santa Clarita Scholarship Foundation, which is due this Friday. I know a lot of students are interested in that and just applying for that. And I also like to say thank you for that foundation for supplying those monetary funds for seniors. And also for the MLK Day, which was on Monday, I saw a lot of students at the Unity Walk, and then I also attended the NAACP luncheon afterwards, which is really nice to see. I saw the Jack and Jill Youth, which had a lot of teenagers across the district come and share a poem, which is very inspiring. So that is my report.
So much. Mr. Jensen.
Yes, thank you. Wanted to recognize Martin Luther King Day, which was on Monday of this week. Welcome everyone back to the new semester. It's going to be a great semester. And a couple other things, the SCV trustees meeting that we have quarterly for all board members of all the different school districts up here in Santa Clarita is on the 29th of January at Helmers Elementary School at 6 o'clock. And then just a few sports things to mention. I've had the opportunity to attend sporting events for Canyon, Valencia, Castaic, and Hart High School over the last few weeks or so. As our student board member mentioned, basketball started the second round, Debbie, of league play on Friday of last week, so get out to a game. And lacrosse has started. That's a great sport if anyone wants to attend a lacrosse game. And then also wanted to mention that Hart High School has a new football coach. So what's kind of interesting about that is there's a tradition here in Santa Clarita of long-term varsity head football coaches. And pretty much all the schools have coaches, head coaches who are coaching for 10, 12, 14, 18, 20, 25 years. So the Harringtons have retired at Hart, and there's a new coach. I had the chance to meet him last week. Nice visit with him for 15, 20 minutes or so, and told him I wouldn't micromanage his play calling, but that I would enjoy going to the game. So nice guy. and he'll do well. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Mr. Messina?
I also went to the MLK Unity Walk Day, and what our student board member was remiss in saying is that she gave a wonderful speech that day. And again, it's always heartwarming to see our students get up, recognize these days, have their facts straight, and not afraid. You weren't afraid. You didn't look afraid.
Oh,
Not
she's
afraid to put it
amazing.
out there. It was a really great speech and a moving speech. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I'm glad to be back.
Thank you. Dr. Moore?
All right, thank you, President Storley. President Storley. President Storley. All right. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2024. It's great to see you. Looking forward to this being a wonderful year. It is wonderful just to get into a new year, another year. Every day is, we have to say thank you. So Happy New Year. I was also at the MLK Unity Walk with Mr. Messina, Ms. Storley, Mr. Coleman, Dara, and a bunch of other community folks. This is the third year, and it has grown. And Dara did do an amazing job as a keynote speaker, our youth keynote speaker. She was phenomenal, just fantastic. So thank you for your confidence. It's hard to, I don't know, I'm not going to ask this, but when I was 17 or 18, I don't believe that I would have been as confident to speak in front of a crowd that large and do it so well. And you were exceptional. So thank you very much. In honor of MLK Day, and as we start the new year off, I heard this from a colleague, and I agree, and it is, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. And Martin Luther King had many, many amazing quotes, but I think as this year moves forward and as our world continues to have challenges where it is not always easy for people to see eye to eye, I think if we stick with love and not carry that burden of hate, things will be a lot better. So I'm sticking with love. I also had the opportunity to go to the parent communications meeting this morning, and it was a great meeting. One of the topics that was highlighted was on attendance. And I'm a parent of a 7th grader. I'm a board member. I've had 2 kids who went to high school in this district, and I learned a lot at that meeting today. And I believe that it's important that I know we talked about ideas about how we can share that information. I would love for us to have an opportunity to share that information at a board meeting. No, I'm ahead. I was going to ask that later on the agenda. Sorry, Madam President. But it was really good, valuable, helpful information as we continue to think about the implications of students not being in school and what that does for their feeling of belonging, their academics, and their overall health and the health of our future. So I'd love for us to be able to share some of the highlights from that. While there, I got to share about an upcoming event that I really hope everyone chooses to become a part of, either by attending or by participating on stage. It's the Wish Heart's Got Talent event, which will be at Castaic High School on March 15th and 16th. I'm looking around, I see faces smiling at me. That means that you have a talent, and we need the talent. The show is for students and faculty, and if we want to do a parent group and perform, it's going to be an amazing opportunity. So I've talked to Mr. Messina and Mr. Jensen, Ms. Storley about doing an act. Please participate, get your kids to participate. The deadline to send in your auditions, I don't know why I did that in quotes, but the deadline to send your auditions is next Friday, the 26th. So if you have not heard about this event, and Wish, as we know, it's one of the ways in which we're able to do things in this district that we couldn't do if we relied just on tax dollars. We all know that tax dollars are just not enough to fund the type of phenomenal education that we want for our kids. So WISH helps to make sure that we can do things beyond that. And our focus this year is around STEAM. So please come out, please participate. Everybody has a gift. Share that gift March 15th and 16th at Castaic. That is my report, Ms. Durley.
Thank you. I have no talent. Mrs. Wilson?
No report. Thank
No,
you.
no report. Well, thank you. And where are you, Mrs. Wilson?
I am with my daughter who just gave birth to a beautiful, healthy little baby boy.
Yay. I knew that, but I wanted to put that
So you
in
did
the
have a
record.
report.
In the record.
Thank you for sharing in my joy.
Thank you. Thank you for your reports. Mine is going to be short this evening. I had a good session with the financial department, Mr. Pechek. Brittany guided me through, walked me through, helped me understand the budget. As Mr. Jensen and Mr. Pechek both say, it's a living document. My hope is that we can keep ours alive. I visited Castaic High School for the active shooter drill. The Sheriff's Department showed a very, very informative short video. I think everyone should see it, staff and students. I think everyone should see this video. It was short, to the point, told us what, God forbid, if we're ever in that situation, what we should do to keep us as safe as we can be. So I'd like to really see if we can get that pushed out to students and staff. Next, I did attend the MLK walk. Dara was amazing. There were 2 children who did a poem. I don't have their names here. I'm looking it up for an article I'm writing. The poem brought us to tears, most of us to tears. They were so good together, and if you weren't there, you really missed something. I was gladdened to see so many friends and fellow Santa Claritans, as well as many Hart employees on their day off to honor Dr. King. The walk was invigorating. I waited until the last 5 feet to catch the stupid high heels I was wearing on a crack in the sidewalk and managed to not break anything during my fall. That's the end of my report. Okay, next we have the Hart District Association, HDTA, President John Minkus. Okay, okay.
Good evening, school board, student school board member, President Mrs. Storley, Superintendent Kuhlman, and staff. Thank you for having me here as usual. I usually look to begin with something positive, but at this point that would be an unfair representation of how our membership feels. I stand here today somewhat befuddled, miffed, not understanding how we have fallen on such hard times so fast, and how fast the brunt of others' mistakes will be cast upon our people, the employees of the district, CSEA and HDTA alike. The district giveth and the district taketh away. But why? Let's look at the factual history for answers. Each of the last 7 years, the school board has permitted the district to move forward with a budget that states we will spend more than we get. I don't know about you, but I might be able to get away with that for a month or maybe even a year. But if I continued with this practice, I would be out on the streets, homeless and destitute. But no worries, because in those years, you started with an adopted budget showing deficit spending, but in all but one of those years did the district end up with a surplus. I wish I could do that. You've done it for 6 of the last 7 years. Year after year, you adopt a budget with obvious slack, underestimating revenues and overestimating expenditures, including less than obvious padding, the overestimation of costs of individual budget items. But by year's end, magically, it's flipped and there is that budget surplus. We look at the data from second interim to the unaudited actuals. And now the state has provided the largest COLA in the 21st century. Even with declining enrollment in all, our LCFF increased by about 5%. And suddenly we're going broke. But alas, we have the second interim as our last chance to save us, to find the money. Those second interim numbers have got to show a different picture. But historically, no, they don't. Projections of ending balance over the last 5 years in the second interim have been short by 20, 17, 32, 48, and $70 million respectively. Do we just wait until we see the continuing discrepancies between budget and actual? We are tired of this game. We tried to start last spring, yet once again we hear, be patient. We'll get the school services to audit. Let's wait and see what's upcoming for next year. Well, we're in next year now, negotiating for 23-24, the year that is now half over, and we're tired of waiting. We continually bring up these facts because they are just that, facts. Undisputed as provided by the district. We work on facts. You work on assumptions and projections. That would be great if they were accurate. Even with the iceberg in sight, the sky all but upon our heads, the third year of the current projection has us about 1.66% short of meeting the 3% reserve. That's the same inexact, misleading projection for which the district identified in previous MYPs, specifically projecting the 22-23 end of year balance at $2 million when it was $116 million. Been there, done that a number of times. Now you see why we question the veracity of the assumptions and projections, thus every piece of the budget. We're not asking for perfection, but what is within reason. As it stands at this moment, our situation is neither reasonable nor tenable. When the current budget was originally presented for approval, not one board member raised a single question. 7 years in a row, you have approved an unbalanced budget. You have had 7 years to fix that issue, but you have chosen to continue to authorize unbalanced budgets year after year. And now the board president, Mrs. Storley, has published an article in a magazine that is distributed to every home in our valley. In this article, she states, quote, "But we don't have money for raises." With that published statement, are we to assume negotiations are over? Sure sounds like bargaining to me. Do we need to expedite our organizing to address the immediacy of impasse? The first step towards a strike. Sure sounds like it to me. Decisions have been made that have placed us in this position. Change must take place. If your rubber stamp of these budgets, without so much as a question, have led us to some place so dire as the district has thoroughly advertised, then it is your fault and you should resign. Change must take place. If it is not that, responsibility must be identified and assigned. Change must take place. Right here, I have all the documents. I have our revenues less expenditures. I have our actuals to unauditeds. I have our unaudited revenues. I have our expenditures. I have all charts, graphs. I will share these with you. But these are the numbers that we've got from you that we use in our calculations. Something, everything is amiss. After all the research and discussion, digging down in the weeds, looking for money here, looking for money there, it still falls back to the de facto definition of budgeting, which is the prioritization of expenditures. Until you prioritize the people that make learning happen, the people that bring the awards, the people that build the opportunity-ready student, we will continue to drift apart, leaving torn behind one heart. Thank you.
I have two.
Mr. Coolman and Ralph, every time John comes up, he talks about fact, and he throws out numbers. Although I don't know where the numbers are coming from. Is there any way, other than in the negotiations, for you guys to sit with John and his team and lay out where these numbers are coming from, so next time he comes up here, we know where they're being added from? Because to sit here and listen to this sometimes, it's almost like we don't live in California with a $68 billion deficit. And we've been asked for months to cut back on our programs. So I would like to know where his numbers are coming from, because he says his are fact, we say ours are fact. As we all know, there's only one fact. So outside of negotiations, is there a way for you guys to have a casual meeting that at least I know where these numbers are coming from?
Maybe
You don't have to give me an answer now, but it's something we should look into.
maybe our financial committee could get
Well,
together.
that's been ignored before. I'd like them to get together specifically and say, where are you getting your 100 million? Give us your breakdown of where those numbers are coming from. Well, it's something they should be allowed to do. You've already had your time to prepare, and then we can come and speak to it.
I will say to the board that Mr. Peshek has offered that, and we are trying to align that right now. There was an expectation on our part that we would see the school services report, and now that we know we aren't, we will schedule a time to meet, and we have already had that discussion to compare what we call things. The numbers themselves that I have come from the DAT files I get from the district. What we call certain things, we're going to clarify, and we're going to get together and make sure we are talking the same language, and I will share those with you as well.
And John, if I may, one clarification is
Yes.
that the school service report is not off. It's, remember, as we had talked
It's
about.
delayed. It's
Right.
delayed further than I thought it would be.
Right, and we have invited, as you know, to be part of that discussion. We're hoping to actually have sort of an initial, and we want to invite you to be part of that as well, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. We have two speaker requests, one from Nancy. Nancy, okay. And the next one is Diane Zimmerman.
So I've reviewed your financial report, and Mr. Minkus is wrong.
A little closer, a little closer.
Okay, sorry. Of the approximate $110 million of fund balance reserve, 9.5 million needs to be subtracted for the required 3% economic uncertainties, which leaves a balance of about 100.4 million ending fund balance. But Mr. Minkus, you still have to subtract the restricted funds of 43.1 million plus the unassigned fund, which is actually 57.5 million. LAO requires the district to have a fund balance reserve of at least 17% or 2 months of general fund expenditures. Therefore, the district should have a reserve of 56 or 57 million, which you have for this year. According to the LAO, the median school district is 22% of the expedition, so you are at the lower end. 2024 estimated budget shows your estimated unassigned fund is at 30.8 million, which it should be at 51.8 million. So you will be at 10% of the general fund, which is required of the minimum of 17. So in addition to that, it's not just, Mr. Minkus is forgetting for something very important. It's not just about numbers and calculations, it's about the law. You've got LAO, you've got state, you've got all these recommendations that say you have to be at certain percentages, you have to have so much funds. That is why you don't have the fund to just give out another raise. So yes, he is wrong. He needs to come up here, bring in the laws like I just did and tell us where the funds are that he's saying are available. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Diane Zimmerman. You may begin.
Thank you. I'm just going to reiterate that with New California State, our city will not have to deal with any government teachers' unions. Schools will go back to traditional teaching of the basics of reading, writing, math, the trades, drama, music, sports, and real American history. Parents will play the dominant role in their children's upbringing. Young graduating adults will have the skills to make their own way in life and not have to depend on the government for their every need. They will learn that you don't always win and not everyone gets a winner's trophy. That when you lose, you work harder and do better in the next competition. Your children will not be moved to the next grade level so as not to hurt their feelings. No child is incapable of learning unless they are made to feel incapable. NewCaliforniaState.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 349, President Mia Reed.
Good evening, President Storley, board members, cabinet, and attendees. Happy New Year. I would like to take this time to introduce you to CSEA's Hart Chapter 349 Executive Board members for 2024. So please stand when I call your name. Carrie Cavell, Vice President. Kathy Heffernan, Secretary. And Janice Dennington, Past President. Unfortunately, Jordan Mraz, who is our new treasurer, and Rebecca Quinones, who retained her position as communications officer, was not able to attend tonight's meeting. Thank you, ladies. I would like to extend a very grateful thank you to Janice, her board, and committee members for having their vision of a respectful and collaborative relationship between the district and our bargaining unit members, which we will endeavor to continue. Like Martin Luther King, I have a dream. I dream that every school is fully staffed with happy employees. We all know that a happy employee is a productive employee. A happy and productive employee shows up to work because they want to. A happy and productive employee gives 110% on every task they are asked to perform. A happy and productive employee is loyal to a fault. My dream is that every school maintenance crew is provided with more than adequate supplies and support so that they can give our students the physical learning environment they deserve. My dream is that there are enough instructional assistants at each school so that our students and teachers have the best instructional support possible. My dream is that every person who steps foot on any school feels safe and secure because they see our campus supervisors being vigilant and helpful. How do we achieve this dream? Negotiations. The opportunity to engage in honest discourse and come to an agreement where everyone is more than satisfied. We are forecasting a future in the red. My honest opinion, we got to this place because of the years of negotiating in arrears, so the budget dictated how negotiations ended, when it should be the opposite. The budget should reflect negotiations. If the budget reflected what was negotiated, then the district would be able to adjust expenditures appropriately. Right now, we negotiate with leftovers. I don't know how you feel about leftovers, but sometimes they leave a bad taste in our mouths. To end on a lighter note, which you all know I do, to Dara, it's National Classy Day. And based on the comments from our board members during their board reports, we are celebrating you. You are graced with the ability to live your life with class, passion, and you're driven to share it with everybody. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you. We do have one person that wishes to speak, Glenda. Glenda doesn't have a last name here, just. Okay.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Okay,
You
I was
may
here a
begin.
few meetings ago. What did you say?
do?
You may begin.
Oh, I have to be told when to begin? When to be, I didn't know the government had to tell me what to do. Anyways, I do what I do because you guys work for me. A few meetings ago, when I was still here in town, there was a meeting, it was about budget, and I know that President Janice, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, and President John Minkus were told to stay here for the budget meeting, and it ended up with saying there's no money in the school. Well, let's come up with a little bit of money here, okay? We have some titled superintendents, assistant superintendents titles here. How much more money are they getting for that? That money can go towards raises. And I'm sorry, guys, and Viera, smile because that money should come to everybody else. And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I was just, got lost there. Yes, we have the school site report. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Holcomb. I was just a little stunned there. A school site report from Canyon High School and the principal, Shelley Holcomb. Thank you so much, Shelley.
Oops, sorry, hang on. Hello, good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak as the very proud principal of Canyon High School. There's a few things that I'd like to highlight, some of the achievements at Canyon this evening. First of all, just a quick overview of Canyon and our current demographics with an enrollment of 1974 and a breakdown of our very diverse community. And what I'd like to talk about first and foremost is I'm extremely proud of our current reclassification rate. We currently have 138 English language students. That includes our newcomers all the way to our LTEL students. Our current reclassification rate is 20%. And after looking at that with a little bit more in depth and realizing that we reclassed 33 students from August to December, we are the highest rate of reclassification of our EL population in the district. So super proud of the hard work happening at Canyon High School and the follow through with my ELD coordinator. But not only that, it's every teacher on that campus. Our focus this semester for professional development is that of literacy. It is embedded everywhere across Canyon High School, and it has truly provided the extra support that each and every one of our EL students has needed to find success. And our reclassification is something that we're extremely proud of. One other thing, no, two other things. I'd like to move on now to something that we have just begun at Canyon High School. And this is sorry, I need the glasses on this one. This is the wellness collaboration that we now have with UCLA, and it started working on it about 2 years ago with Sarah Gilbert. We were working with what's known as the Social Welfare Department or Unit of Study at UCLA. We're happy to report that we've just now started this, and we are the pilot program for it in the Hart District. So this is a little bit of background about the why, which is always important to me. We were receiving inquiries from the Hart students, as well as our student athletes, as well as our coaches and our athletic trainer. We saw an increased concern in the anxiety levels of our athletes, whether it was related to classwork, homework, athletic performance, that athlete fortitude. We saw a special correlation between our short-term and long-term physical injuries and the direct impact it had on the mental wellness and the mental health of our athletes. With these concerns, we realized the importance of being able to support the mental health of these athletes. Last year alone, we had 654 athletes. 621 of them seeked out wellness in some form or another, whether group, in a group, as a team, or individually, to seek out additional wellness as far as the mental health was in correlation to athleticism. So now, as the pilot school with UCLA, We've received our resources, our curriculum, and we've started to implement the process, which starts with basically a survey that allows us to find the opportunity for each specific group of athletes or individual on what their specific need may be. We then take back that information to the specific athlete or the specific team, and it's a weekly process that we're able to work with those student athletes within our wellness. So our wellness coordinator and our wellness community, our wellness counselors, if you will, are able to work with them directly every week. At the end of 5 weeks, we reassess throughout the survey. We're able to see successes. We're able to see where adjustments need to be made for these students. And although we are in the just first stages of giving the survey, we're very excited about the fact that this really provides us with a focus for our student athletes. Obviously, mental health and mental wellness is incredibly important for all of our students, but we didn't really have anything before this specifically for our athletes. And our athletes are very prevalent in the Hart District, and it's good to know that we were able to work with UCLA and their program to pilot this and then share that information out with the remainders of the schools in the district. This I've been wanting to talk about for a few years now. Canyon High School's improvement in our math. So I love the fact that I get asked about how are we increasing our CASP scores at Canyon High School. I love that people are asking us how we're able to increase our success rates, whether it's with interim assessments or whether it's with common assessments, performance tasks, benchmarks, whatever it might be. And I would like to be able to finally share some information about that. We've worked incredibly hard, and kudos to Victoria Robinson and the entire math department at Canyon, who really took on, it really took on a huge need. This chart right here, the line at the 0 shows the district level CASP. You can see that we were 6% below the district level in 16 and 17, 2016-17. We were 5% below it in 17 and 18. We were 10% below it in 18 and 19, and that was a huge ouch and a huge realization for us. Under the direction at that time was the Kim Arnold, who was currently working at Canyon High School and is now left to work in a very beautiful Zion National Park area. She sort of took that impetus of noticing that we really needed to do something, working with the entire team and with Victoria Robinson. They reached out to a person who was a math teacher in the San Bernardino School District. He was known technically as the Khan Academy Mastery of Standard. And if you're not familiar with what Khan Academy, it is a software program that provides standard-based practice for students within the math realm. He had learned to identify gaps within the students. Processes and practices just by looking at this one software program. So they met with him, they went over it, and they decided that they would start there with that at Canyon High School. So they established what they were able to find out through that program was where their gaps were. They then took that information and they took it into their current practice, realizing that this is where the gaps. Khan Academy allows you to test for the current levels of instruction that you're in by standard. We could see it, and they then implemented that in a spiral fashion into every practice that they were doing. They were sure to go back and revisit it when there were problems, and they were able to see that their gaps were starting to diminish. They also started using the CASP interim assessments in all classes, not just in 11th grade or 10th, in which provided them information through the data review on the most common mistakes and, more importantly, the why of those mistakes. They were then able to figure out that the students had the knowledge for the math computation. In fact, they could do that, but the problem they were having was the reading comprehension and the understanding of what was being asked to actually solve the problems. They then took that information, adjusted their current levels of practice, their current practice. And what we found was that we weren't asking the right questions, so to speak. We were able to really change our practice to include the higher level thinking. We were able to include into our practice the current levels of instruction, the current standards, what we were missing based on these assessments. And they didn't stop there. So they continued to work with these levels of higher level critical thinking problem or questions and problems in their approach to math. This has allowed us to increase exponentially over the last few years, not only in our CASP scores, but also in our student successes. When we're looking at a student that may have begun in Canyon High School in 9th grade and was in an Algebra 1 class, continued on to geometry and then to Algebra 2, our success rate in students with a C- and higher has gone from 64% to 86%. Now that's not pure data, because you are going to have some students that don't follow that path, or you're going to have some students that have gone to a different school. But overall, I think the important thing to remember here is that I originally had asked this question, I don't want anybody to ever teach to a test. And the answer was, what they had found was, by looking at that test, that we were able to actually increase the critical reasoning and the critical thinking, and allowed out the opportunity for our students to be able to access those problems from all different angles and see the way to find resolve from many different approaches. So that's how we've been able to move up and find successes in the math programs at Canyon. So that's, I know I was speaking fast, but that's what I had to share out this evening with you in correlation to some of our major achievements currently at Canyon High School. Questions? I also, hold on, I know I have a couple more slides for you that
Yes.
you probably looked at as well.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, these are some of the things, the positive things that we also have in store at Canyon right now as far as additional improvements in culture and climate. So if there are any questions for
Question.
me. Yep,
Um,
Mr. Johnson.
On the athletic wellness program for the students, I really like that idea and concept. Is that available for all grades and all students, whether it's a Frost soft team or varsity team or lacrosse or
Yes.
basketball or girls volleyball?
Yes.
It's for everybody. Okay.
Yes, so currently how they wanted to start was, it's really a micro study right now of 100 students. And yes, it is all levels. You could be in season, out of season, you could be varsity, you could be freshman. It's sort of in a collective grouping is what we wanted to see. So we started there, and then we will continue to implement more and
He
more
was
students.
surprised. I really like that idea and concept, so keep
We're
working
very
with that.
excited about it,
Yeah,
actually. And
that's really
it was
cool.
really a need that we found.
Yeah.
So it's good that we're able to, and I have to go back and thank Sarah Gilbert. She's been working on this for almost 2 years to be able to get us to put this program together with UCLA.
Then my other comment is congratulations on the math scores. That's
you.
really
Amazing.
nice to see that increase. Yeah,
Thank you.
very good. Thank you.
Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Ms. Holcomb, for the report. I'm very interested also in the athletic wellness program. My question is around how it's paid for and the funding.
So because it's a pilot program and UCLA would like to see this implemented farther into the other programs in other high schools.
Go Bruins.
Go
All
Bruins,
right.
we're not, sorry. Go Bruins. We're able to work with them, and they're not actually charging
Wonderful.
us any money.
Okay, that is great.
It's research.
It is, but it's going to be
It's going to be amazing. We're excited about it.
Truly looking forward to having us figure out how we can benefit
Continue
from
that. So this
research.
program will go all the way till the end of the 2025 school year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So
Okay. And I also am proud of your test score changing in math. Khan Academy, I know that's a part of the puzzle. This is more of a comment, but I appreciate that your staff was looking to find a solution to an issue instead of just letting it continue to go on the trend that it was heading and just accepting it. I know we don't tend to do that in the Hart district, but to really go outside, seek what's happening maybe in another district or something, and find a solution that we can bring back. We need to do that even more. And I'm so glad that you have a model that shows us here's some best practices, some things that we learn, and these are the results. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Mr. Messina?
Good, thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
I just want to echo what's been said. I'm so impressed with Canyon High School, the things that you've been able to do, and this that you've just shared with us. I think it's inspiring for, I'm sure, every school to see how these teachers have found ways to help students succeed, and that you and the rest of the administration was supportive of that and helping make that happen. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Ms. Holcomb, I'm blown away by your math improvement. I like one of the things that you said, you don't teach to the test. Absolutely, that's 100% how I feel. But finding out ways to make something more understandable, if you're talking about math and your questions or the way you approach it isn't understandable, it could look like the student didn't know how to do the math, which in fact the student might know how to do the math but didn't understand the problem. You attack this in a way that's a spectacular improvement. Congratulations to your math. And of course, Canyon holds a special place in my heart, and I love to see it succeed. So this is amazing, and please take our thanks back to your math department. And we should approach all of our subjects this way, because sometimes the kids just don't understand the question. They might have the answers, but sometimes as a teacher, you might have to ask a question a different way, and they go, oh, now I understand what you're asking, where it might look like they didn't understand, or they couldn't do the work, or they didn't know the answer. They just didn't understand the question. So I'm super, super impressed with this. Thank you so much, and thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. We have a request to address the board. I'm so sorry. Paul. Hi, Paul. I'm so sorry. I can't read the last name. Okay, I believe you.
It's like got and sus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So sorry. When I was hired as a substitute back in 2017, I dreamed of becoming a teacher in the Hart District. I knew I would be able to provide for my family doing something that I love in a place that I love. Now, 7 years later, I found a home teaching history and ethnic studies at Canyon High School. I did not imagine the opportunity to speak and advocate for the staff, students, and the community of Canyon, but it makes me proud to do so. The community at Canyon has been so amazing. Ethnic studies specifically is a new curriculum that I've been a part of developing here at Hart District. I've been given trust and support through my navigation of this. Site admin, my fellow teachers, and my students inspire me every day to be the best teacher that I can possibly be, while simultaneously making it impossible to not love teaching at Canyon. The proud feeling I have of being a member of the Canyon community is a positive and healthy one. There's an area of weakness as a whole, though, that I would like to address to keep this community the amazing one that we all love. Rent is extremely high in this valley and is unobtainable for us new teachers like myself. And it is only getting worse with each month. By this point in my life and career, I expected to be looking to buy a home and start a family. My wife and I are double income, no kids, and we're still struggling to keep our finances positive. She's a teacher as well. However, her district gave them an 8% increase. This increase makes a huge difference in our daily lives, as it makes the stress load and the financial struggles easier to bear. Her district is supporting newer and younger teachers, and we need to do that here to keep those passionate and young teachers coming in. You can't control rent, but you do control how
Thank you, but your
teachers are
time is up.
supported.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay. Okay. This is the time set aside for the governing board, set aside to address the governing board on a topic within the board's subject matter jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. Please complete a speaker card and submit it prior to the beginning of the public comment. 20 minutes will be allotted for public comment at this time. The first 10 people to submit a speaker card, thank you, we only have 6, will be allowed to, the first 10 people to submit a speaker card prior to the beginning of the public comment period will be heard. Additional time will be set aside later in the meeting for anyone that wasn't called on. Please use the microphone and state your name. I guess that's optional. No action will be taken on any item not appearing on the agenda, and the board president will limit your comments to 2 minutes. The president may, that's me, may limit public comment on the time. We only have 6 speakers, so I'm not going to finish that. So I'm going to call the first speaker up, and this is Glenda. No last name.
First of all, Linda, it's okay if you're getting a little bit confused because you just became president, and congratulations on that.
I'm not confused. Thank you.
No, it's okay. It happens. COVID is over, and we've had a COVID czar and a new staff that really needs to be dismantled. And also, as I said earlier, with the superintendent names there, with the extra money that they're getting, I would like to see what the amount of money would be saved if all that was taken away. And I would like to have the money discussed with John over there when you guys have that meeting to see what more, how much more money we can come up with. The second thing is there was a issue with workers' compensation fees by the employees, which weren't aware that they were paying. Now, I was told by Mr. Coleman that the school pays the other half. I contacted every school, including LA City and LAUSD and Glendale and Burbank, and not one of those schools has employees pay for workers' compensation out of their paychecks. I believe this is something that has to be taken care of, because if you're the only school doing this, we need to find out why. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dr. Stephen Barron. Did I say that right, sir?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. You can just give them all to Dr. Vieira. You may begin. Sir, it's over here.
Members of the board and audience, I wish to bring to your attention a significant cultural event occurring in our city on Sunday, February the 4th at 6 p.m. at the Hart High Auditorium. Mr. Joe Alexander, a 101-year-old Holocaust survivor, will be speaking about his astonishing personal account of his survival from Nazi hell. Born in 1922 in Poland, Mr. Alexander and his family enjoyed a comfortable life until Nazi Germany invaded Poland in 1939. From Kowl, the Nazis sent Alexander to 12 different concentration camps, including Dachau and Auschwitz-Birkenau. After the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, he was sent from Auschwitz back to the Warsaw Ghetto to clean up the destruction's aftermath. As the Polish Home Army advanced towards Warsaw, the Nazis sent Mr. Alexander to camps in Germany and then on a death march. 79 years have passed since the liberation of the last of the Nazi death camps in 1945. Survivors, such as Mr. Alexander, are nearing the end of their lives. It is doubtful that our community will ever have the opportunity again to hear in person, firsthand, the experience of a Holocaust survivor. Mr. Alexander will be speaking for approximately 1 hour, followed by a question and answer session. I urge you to attend and bring your loved ones, especially your children and grandchildren, for this literally once-in-a-lifetime event.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Cindy. And it'll be Nancy and then Diane. You may begin.
Ms. Moore.
Dr.
Ms. Moore, as a leader to the youth in this community, one who truly understands the sacrifices between those who have served our country, I believe that you will understand what I want to share. At the recent City Council meeting, you were with a group of students selected to receive an award on behalf of Martin Luther King, a man who honored peace and loved this country. The attendees were asked to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. How heartbreaking and very pathetic it was to witness that these students refused to stand for the allegiance and made a decision to decline the pledge. This was witnessed by the crowd in person and those who watched virtually. Immediately, the audience was struggling to honor this occasion after some such behavior was witnessed. I realize you're not responsible for their horrible actions, but they look up to you. My hope is that you took the time to at least follow up with these students on their resistance and had a healthy conversation with your elite attitudes. It's no wonder our nation's young generation is falling apart as such leaders condone this disgraceful behavior. As a sitting member on a school board, we expect you to be a positive role model for our students so they can become a positive, loving, healthy part of society. At the City Council meeting, you seem to have condoned their behavior. This is very concerning as these kids will one day be in charge of our country, and how can we have a peaceful country if it is run by hate and disrespect? We should be working together to educate our youth on peace, love, and respect our country. We should all be thankful to be an American. Ms. Moore, my hopes are that if you have another chance to be a leader with these groups, that you would educate an already broken, disrespectful group of kids. Actions speak louder than words. You also say that you're a woman of faith, and if this is true, you should also know that where there is God, there is love. Let's work together this year and teach more of God so that we can instill the meaning of love instead of hate and
Thank you.
disrespect. Thank you.
Next, Nancy. And then Diane.
So it is my understanding that the district's budget is determined and set by stringent laws, starting from from local government to LA County, to the LAO, to the CDE, to the state of California, and then eventually the federal government. So I'm baffled why your employees do not know these laws and guidelines involved with your budget. I'm a taxpayer. I have taken the time to read and understand your budget and understand the laws involved. So I will say it as simple as I can to the public and to you. If you, the district, start negotiations without creating a budget according to guidelines and laws, you, the employees, would be held legally in violation of local, state, and federal laws. And you could possibly face jail time. In other words, you have to create your budget according to the laws, and then negotiations is whatever is in unrestricted, I guess, leftover reserves. So when people ask for more raises, look, I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to pay any more taxes, okay? I don't want to be squeezed any more out of me. There's a huge billions and billions of dollars of deficit. So when people come up here and ask you for a raise because they're not getting enough, your employees, how about look at the culprit, which is a poor economy and high inflation. Stop coming to you guys because then it comes on us to pay more taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Diane Zimmerman. And then Chris Jackson. You may begin.
Thank you. This is going to get old to you. Concerned about what is going on in the government-run schools, especially in California under Governor Newsom and his cohorts? Seriously, Look into New California State, newcaliforniastate.com. I was told by a board member that it's a great idea, but impossible to accomplish. I beg to differ. Thank God our forefathers did not think it's a great idea, but it can't be done. New California State is well on its way towards getting it done. The proclamation on the steps of the Sacramento State Capitol on Monday at 11 a.m. noon is a step of a multitude of steps they have taken over the past 6 years that will have us before Congress in a very near future. They have so far read over 190 grievances over 190 weeks, issued 20 declarations of default and truth, conducted over 70 legislative field hearings in the counties of New California State, had 12 constitutional conventions, conducted over 520 live streaming, public conference calls, and has established the reorganized government of the California State. New California State has already achieved state status and seeks to join the Union of State of the United States of America. Therefore, the great state of New California requests the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States Congress be assembled and approve the great state of New California to be declared to be one of the United States of America and admitted into the Union on an equal footing with the original states in all respects, whatever. This is not a secession. New California will work side by side with its sister state to get both states back to the original Constitution of the United States and its values.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson. First and the last name.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Chris Jackson. I'm a math teacher in our district. I am confused by our district finances. This year, our district received a large ongoing COLA funding increase, one of the largest ever. At the start of this year, our fund had a balance of $116 million. That's up from a starting balance of $36 million in 2020. That's an $80 million increase since 2020. Yet our budget projects that we will lose that giant balance and drop below state requirements by 2026. I'm confused by how you can budget to overspend $85 million in the next 2 years. This is financial mismanagement. Now your budget claims, the bad budget claims, will be addressed by planning to pink slip or RIF to save over $21 million through layoffs. You're talking about laying off new teachers. Now, I'm a math teacher. If each new teacher cost the district $75,000, that would mean 280 teachers would be released. If each new teacher cost $125,000, that would still be 168 teachers laid off. Even if this is supposed to be split between 2 years, that would still be 84 teachers being laid off. We've had a large funding increase, an ending balance that has grown $80 million in the past 3 years and is currently at $116 million. And we're planning on laying off a lot of new teachers. This is going to be tremendously impactful on these teachers. And I don't understand how we can be at this point talking about laying off about 100 new teachers. I'm confused. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
This over. Excuse me, this is mine. So the Hart District is proud to join more than 1,000 local educational agencies in the state in recognizing the contributions of board members during School Board Recognition Month. And in this time of unprecedented challenges in nearly every sector of life, board members have worked tirelessly to help the district establish new ways of ensuring students continue to learn. And so I'd like to invite our community to please join the Hart District in saluting our hardworking board members for their support of our students through effective policies and for continuing advocacy for our resources at the state level. And so I would ask the board that they would approve this proclamation recognizing both the school members seated at the dais here and all throughout our community for your excellent work in support of students, families, and staff.
So you want us to approve a pat on the back for us?
It is, excuse me, it's just a proclamation. So there's no vote.
It's not a pat, it's just a proclamation.
Just a proclamation. Thank you so much. We feel honored to be honored.
Move to approve.
Sure. Next, we have Dr. Vieira.
Thank you, Ms. Storley. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce Hart District Professional Development Program Specialist Courtney Straka, who's going to present about the Congressional Medal of Honor program, also her involvement in it, and the program's partnership with the Hart District. Courtney, thanks.
Thank you. Hello, good evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Courtney Straka, former Golden Valley teacher, former PAR consulting teacher, and now the program specialist for professional development. In addition to those things, I came into this district from the Acton Agua Dulce district, and where I had begun working with the Congressional Medal of Honor Society as a curriculum trainer and developer for the society. So I'm honored to get to share this with you tonight because this is near and dear to my heart, and I'm very honored to be able to share their story. Just to give you a little background on the medal itself, it was signed into law in 1861. Since then, there have been less than 3,600 total recipients, and currently living, we have 65 Medal of Honor recipients. Those 65 recipients make up the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. They are the only members of it. It is the highest military award. It is awarded for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty. What's unique about this medal is that it's submitted by peers. It is not a top-down medal. So while it's submitted by peers, then it goes through the levels of approval where Congress will approve it, and then the president will award it in the name of Congress. Awardees like to be referred to as recipients rather than winners because it was not a competition for them. For many of them, it was the worst day of their life. Just so you can see, it is the Medal of Honor, but there are 3 current designs of the medal. The first one was the Navy. That was designed first. Then came the Army and then the Air Force. It is a combat medal, so maybe eventually there'll be a Space Force medal, we don't know, but right now there is not. The Marines and the Coast Guard used the Navy medal, and before the Air Force was brought in as a branch, pilots were receiving the Army Medal of Honor for the Army Air Corps. And so you can see, but the Air Force did come in last, so they brought in the biggest design. So you can see an Air Force medal across the room. The recipients themselves truly believe in giving back. They made a split-second decision and then were awarded the Medal of Honor for it. And they said, you know, there are a lot of people in everyday life who give themselves selflessly, who do heroic actions. And so part of their legacy is making sure that they honor everyday civilians. So they award every year on Medal of Honor Day, which is March 25th, the Citizen Honors Award. And that's going to look for citizens who have given themselves selflessly or have done heroic actions. And they've recently included a new category for youth who have also done the same things. Part of what I do for the society is that I work in their curriculum team, and I work for the character development program. What it is it's designed around the stories of the Medal of Honor recipients and then some core values. I'm going to show you just a brief, about a 1.5-minute video just to give you an idea about the program, and then I'll share some more facts.
You don't have to don a uniform for service or sacrifice. I just happened to wear one when the actions happened for me that day.
How do you teach character? I think you have to let the kids' experiences teach them. Show them that they've already had these experiences that they can learn from in their own lives.
We can honor as a demonstration to the young people in particular that you need not go into the military and wear the uniform in order to confront a circumstance that will challenge your being.
You need to know that someone else before you did something amazing and that you're capable of doing that too and not just running away from your problems.
What's interesting about the Citizen Honors is that they look at it and they go, that could be me. And so they start to look at heroes as somebody they want to become instead of just somebody to look up to.
How many of you
I've had that one student that you just wish they would get out of your classroom, out of your face. That kid, maybe he's just looking for a little push-out instead of a push-out.
That just gave you a little introduction into what the program is all about. All of our lessons are centered on 6 core values: courage, commitment, citizenship, integrity, patriotism, and sacrifice. While it's centered on those 6 core values, we do use the stories of Medal of Honor recipients and also citizen honorees to get those points across. Everything we do is designed by educators for educators. That was very important for me and the educators that I work with. It's easily integrated into current academic and counseling standards. And the best part is it comes at no cost to schools or their districts. So part of the legacy of the Medal of Honor recipients, in addition to the citizen honors, is they wanted to make sure that this came at no cost to any school that wanted to learn about their stories and the core values that go along with them. We do have secondary and elementary resources, and the main thing that we want to do is we want to promote inclusivity of all students and reinforce literacy through the lessons. It is absolutely not a military recruitment tool. We often see that, people think that it might glamorize or glorify war. It actually does the opposite. They see a very real version of what it means to be in action. The other thing that's very important to me and to the program is that it's not political. We don't think that having these core values belongs to any political party, and instead we just want students to see how they can exemplify these core values in their own lives. So to date, just under 20,000 teachers have been trained across the country. This year we did our first international training in Okinawa, Japan, which I was fortunate to be a part of. We did it on the Air Force Base in Okinawa. In-person trainings is mostly what we do. We do some other events, which I'll talk about, but I wanted to highlight the in-person trainings that we've done with teachers here in the Hart District. So you'll see some Hart District teachers in all of these pictures. Some of them now are in your admin team. The top middle picture in Okinawa, Japan, she said, you're from the Hart District. She said, I graduated from Canyon High School. So she's a graduate of the Hart District. She met her husband, also who is a graduate of the Hart District. The resources that we have come at completely no cost to schools in their districts. It's all online, but it's very quality material. And every teacher that goes to a training receives everything that we have, and they're continually updated as we come out with new vignettes and new lessons that go along with them. Some of the speaking events that we've done here in the Hart District alone or have included Hart District students, we often would have JROTC go down to the Reagan Forum speaking event and be the color guard for that event. We've had several recipients who have come to speak at Golden Valley, and then also I brought a recipient to Valencia High School a couple of years ago to do a speaking event there. You'll see in here just a range of students and staff that have been able to interact with the recipients. So in the district, because I worked at Golden Valley, I was made aware of this. Just at Golden Valley alone, we had great-grandkids of 2 Medal of Honor recipients just at Golden Valley. So both were from World War II. Okutsu actually was in part of the 442nd, which is the most decorated regiment in military history. And then David Gonzalez, you might see his name as you drive up the 5, almost at the 514 connector. There's a portion in Pacoima where it is named after him. And you'll see his name there. It'll say Medal of Honor recipient David Gonzalez. Also World War II. So upcoming trainings, in 2 Saturdays on the 27th here in the boardroom, we're going to be hosting about 60 teachers who are coming from our district and also neighboring districts. So we have LAUSD, we have the Palmdale district, we also have Acton Agua Dulce who will be joining us for one of those trainings that we do. It'll be secondary, so it'll be all secondary teachers in this room learning about the recipients and the core values. And then on Thursday, February 8th, we will be holding the Reagan Speakers Forum where we have a War on Terror recipient, David Bellavia, who will be speaking to schools who have brought their students in to hear him speak and then tour the Reagan Library. So we'll be doing that as well. Thank you for letting me present on this. It's, again, near and dear to my heart. And I'm excited that hopefully we'll get more teachers through this training who are able to use the free resources and be able to tell the stories through their lessons.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I do have a question, Ms. Sterling.
Yes, Dr. Moore.
Hi, Ms. Straka. Quick question for you. Did I hear, or maybe I missed it, how many citizen awards have we been able to get?
So that's a great question. I came back to on the total number. They started doing those in 2007. And when they originally started, there were only 3 awards given per year. They have since amended that number because they've added in other categories. So they've added in like the youth hero, youth selfless service, and they've also added in a community selfless service award as well. I can get the total number to you for sure though, but it's a wonderful program, and to have the recipients being able to award citizens for doing very brave and selfless things it's pretty emotional.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Coleman.
Was referring to that actually more
Yes.
appropriately would be Dr. Vieira. So I'll turn that over to you, Dr. Vieira.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Coleman. So tonight, we're going to present an update on focus area number 1 of our strategic plan, student learning and instruction. And if the board may recall, we gave updates last year, so we'll give an update on that. Some of the educational services team members will be coming up and playing a part in it as well. Tonight, I know that Mr. Peshek later in the agenda is going to be speaking about the budget stability plan, which I know everyone's aware, but we wanted to emphasize that we've been doing a lot of work in the entire district, all of our school sites, on really focusing our work, on aligning our work, and trying to highlight the things that are giving us the highest yield. So when we have these budget constraints, we kind of leverage the key data points and also from some of our funding that we'll share later. So even though it's the same amount as a budget stability plan, I wanted to be able to show the community and the board that we are continuing on with the areas of the strategic plan. So just starting off, kind of coming back to what we shared last year. Again, this is not something that we're ever done with. We're trying to create this, we're calling a cycle of inquiry, where we're, again, coming back that we're trying to have high expectations for all of our students, but having support structures in place. And like I said a couple of minutes ago, really trying to have a consistent and aligned work of our staff. I think it was a great example Ms. Holcomb brought up today of the math department at Canyon High School. It's really trying to build out of the successes that we already have at our school sites and getting people together to collaborate and be creative and really, again, focus on the things that are working for our district. That goes in the next bullet point up here, really using data and coming up with those and looking at and implementing the high leverage points that we have. A big part of it is, and Ms. Straka was just up here, she's our professional development program coordinator, is really setting up opportunities for professional learning and collaboration. And Dave, if you could go back to the previous slide one more time. Again, we talked about continuous improvement, and throughout this brief presentation, you're going to hear the term best first instruction. That is where we've really hit a lot of our work this year, and as we get into our MTSS, multi-tiered system of support slide, it's really looking at what we do in the classroom for all of our students, really putting our focus on that best first instruction, because that is where we know that we have all of our students for that time. Sometimes it's difficult for students to stick around after school for some of our intervention before school because of other things going on. So our focus has been on that best first instruction in each individual classroom, each period, I should say, of the day. Thanks, Dave. 1.1 of our strategic plan is called standards-based instruction and common assessments. And you're going to see we have the presentation set up similarly to last year, is kind of define what it is, what we've done, and what we're working on. So again, the whole point of this part of the strategic plan, standards-based instruction and common assessments, is really making sure that regardless of the school site or the class that our students are in, they're receiving the same curriculum. We've identified the most important standards, and we've also set up a pacing and set up assessments that can track our students' progress along the way, and more importantly, drive the instruction of our teachers. Specifically with the work we've done this year, in 3 areas, English language arts, math, and science, we've done a lot of work with our curriculum guides, pacing, identifying priority standards, and trying to implement common assessments and benchmark exams. With our science courses, through the next generation science standards, which has been implemented over the last, I guess, 5 to 7 years, it's set up into 6 instructional segments. So through the work of Julie Huffman and our science teachers throughout the district, it's already been set up, but we've identified the key standards, the pacing, and that's already been implemented. This year, our program specialists in English language arts and math, Aaron Kirkland, who's here, and also Kim Jimenez for our math, have had 2 professional development opportunities now where we had teachers from every school site in every course in English language arts and math, and they came in here for a day and worked on, identified what they thought the most important standards were. We're calling them priority standards in our district. They then took that back to their school sites and brought it back for another meeting where we also had vertical teams, 7th grade through high school, to really identify what are the most important topics that's agreed upon that everyone needs to make sure we're hitting, and then the pacing. From that, then, we're trying to develop, and we've started to pilot common assessments where we can get teachers together with real-time data where they can then enhance their instruction throughout the school year. We're using the term benchmark exams too. That is really trying to find points in the year where we give the same assessment to our students in a particular content area so that teachers, again, can get together, look how students are doing, and then drive their instruction as we move forward. Leave it right there, Dave. Just wanted to highlight a couple things. Some of the things that we've worked on and been able to do this year in ELA, we've had performance tasks twice a year, which is a common assessment, and we've able this year to identify, I guess, a more consistent manner in which we looked at that, and we did get all of our English teachers together. We're looking at expanding that to 4, but also using the Study Sync program, which has come along with our textbooks. Math, we're piloting common assessments at a couple of our junior high schools this year, and we're going district-wide in 24, 25. And then in science, we've able to pilot it this year with 8th grade science, biology, and chemistry. And it's nice because it's set up, as I mentioned before, into 6 instructional segments. So it's set up very nicely that way. And then we're also working on a protocol of how to look at that data and then use it in the classroom. So now with each of these focus areas, we've got one just very brief example that we're going to share. So Dave, if you could go to the next slide. And Dave, I'm going to let you explain this.
Thank you. The common assessment piece really fell into the, appropriately so, the science department, because we were really a ways ahead of the whole search for common assessments, I mean, for essential standards and so on. We're 8, 9 years into this, so it just made sense that this year the science department would take the lead on really implementing common assessments. The platform we use is Inner Orbit. Let me kind of share that with you so you can take a look at see what that looks like. It's a platform that we allows us to administer the assessments very efficiently. And what you're looking at here is what a student would see when they take the Inner Orbit assessment. On the left-hand side, you see all the phenomenon, which would be an activity happening. Below there, you'll see data, graphs, and so forth. Then as we answer questions, we flip to the right on our, there we go. And about every 6 questions, the phenomena will change. Over on the left, you see some changes happen. Now, the beauty of that is, again, it allows teachers to a huge closet of already assessed, aligned to NGSS standards test questions. So they can, when the teams, like the ones that created these benchmarks we're talking about, that you heard Dr. Rivera talk about, that are being given this year, they can access that with creativity and pick the questions that work best for them in their time frame in which they're given the test. The pilot will grade the assessment, gives feedback to the teachers, and allows them to, in a real-time sense, interact with the responses they get from their students and make adjustments to their instruction. That's really the beauty of what it does. Going back to just replace real quickly where we were, I like to kind of put two points there. One is that we've learned some things this year from what we were going through. One is that we should not allow windows of assessments to overlap semesters, because what we found out is Inner Orbit re-rosters reshuffles the rosters that semester, which means the digital connection between students and teachers have changed. It happened this year for our chemistry teachers, and we feel absolutely horrible that we allowed that to happen, but we had a chemistry window that we opened up early December. It opened up through the middle of January, which allowed students to take the test anytime in that window. The problem was that rosters reshuffled over the semester, which caused the connections to disappear, and so we're kind of a dark hole for that one particular chemistry test. We've learned not to do that going forward. One big thing too on the common assessments really mentioned by Dr. Vieira, the third point there, like to lead us with that is that they promote collaboration and professional learning centered on student mastery throughout the district. When done properly, engaging teachers in the process of creating the assessments, interacting with the assessments, reviewing and debriefing is a tremendous PD that focuses on student mastery, and it's district-wide. That's really what the benefit, or one of the benefits, of common assessments.
And it really is real-time data for it too. There's a I think almost immediate turnaround with that. And so just to briefly summarize that, now last year we talked about trying to identify our key standards. We now have our priority standards identified in science, English, and math. We've got pilots and common assessments going out. We've also got our pacing and our up-to-date curriculum guides. Going on to the next part of our strategic plan, focus area 1.2, equitable grading practices. Whenever we say this, people always say, oh my gosh, what does that mean? You're going to tell me how to grade my students. Really, we try to simplify it down to two things. Number one, we want to make sure we're assessing what we want the students to know and be able to do. And two, we want some consistency among our assessments. So what a grade means in this class for the same course is similar to what's in another class. It's really all we're talking about with equitable grading practices. Some of the things we've been working on is developing consistent assessment and grading practices, common rubrics, and trying to give through these common assessments some timely feedback. And again, it all comes back to the alignment piece. Is everybody teaching the same standards? Are we on a similar pacing? Are we assessing that? Are we looking at it? And then what do we do with that data? That's really what we're talking about with this equitable grading. And also we're starting to look at our equal increment grading system. Where are the grades and what do they really mean? I'm going to invite up Aaron Kirkland, our our program specialist for English Language Arts. I know your name.
I am a professional
yeah.
as well.
And he's going to give us one example of something we've been working on, and that is some of our rubrics that we've used for English Language Arts. So Aaron, take it away.
Just a quick brief example from English Language Arts. We've been doing benchmarks for a while now. We give 2 full essays a year. This is a district-wide benchmark exam that's given. The rubrics that you see up there is high school and our junior high rubric. They're modeled after the CASP rubric that's used in the statewide exam. And we come together at each school site, score our own essays. Teachers don't score their own, they actually do an essay swap. There's a norming process where the teachers work together to norm their scoring so that a score from one teacher is equivalent to a score from another teacher, and this is consistent across the district. All grade levels are giving the benchmark assessment. So something we tried a little different this year is to shorten the writing assignment for the junior high schools. So on that scoring day, the junior high teachers, they had an extra hour or two to collaboratively lesson plan an intervention lesson and an enrichment lesson for their students. And these lesson plans that were collaboratively created with each department at each school site were placed in a shared drive. And so the teachers at all the school sites could see what other teachers are doing to address the needs, excuse me, address the needs of the kids, the learning gaps.
Thank you. And again, so with equitable grading, it's trying to come up with some commonalities with our assessment, getting people together and using similar tools. Would somebody mind moving to the next slide? We can't have it on both, so thank you. 1.3 in area number 1 is a multi-tiered system of support, which again, I think this is brought up, Dr. Moore, you brought it up from our PCC this morning. It's really trying to support students to achieve, but that means we have to look at their academic, behavioral, and also social needs of our students. And again, this is often referred to, or not often, but it is. It has 3 tiers of support. We've been focusing on tier 1, which again is what we do for all students, and we're focusing on that best first instruction. Some of the things we've been working on this year is trying to build the capacity of our school sites. Mr. Webb, who I'm going to introduce here in a second, I know everybody knows, but he and Ms. Straka have been completing a training, and Dr. Hoffman, sorry, for our site teams. We have MTSS teams at all of our school sites. They all went to training through Los Angeles County Office of Education, and now they're providing a 3-day training for our teams. We also have the district-wide MTSS leadership team. Every school site has done a plan. And again, I mentioned tier 1, also looking at our tier 2 targeted support and intensive in tier 3. One other thing I want to mention, because it is such a support for our students, is this year Mr. Webb has worked and actually wrote a grant. I went through the California Department of Education where we're teaming with Cal State University Bakersfield. I know the board is aware of this because they approved it, but it was teaming with them to provide literacy authorization to teachers on our school campuses. We've got our first cohort that's on the way. That'll be completed next fall. And then we've got 5 years after that. So we'll be able to infuse that in all our classrooms where teachers can then work with students on accessing the text and writing and speaking, all based on this authorization that's come out of the program. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Webb, who is our MTSS and literacy program specialist, to give one quick example on some of the things we're working on in this area.
Thank you, Dr. Vieira. It's nice to
Excuse me, you look very familiar, Mr. Webb.
yes, I recently was up there, and now I'm
Yes.
glad I'm here.
Get smart.
No,
We're glad you're
it's
here.
great to see you again. As Dr. Vieira explained, with multiple-tiered system of support, it's looking at the way that you educate the whole child approach. So we look at the behavioral, the social emotional, and the academic. What you have on the screen here is an example of a school's MTSS plan, and you can see that it is divided into those 3 areas. And then underneath it are the supports in terms of educational leadership, system supports, also current ideas or systems in place, and then also inclusive policies and practices. What is important to understand about MTSS, this is not new. It is simply taking everything that has been done and put it into a very neat and tight package with a ribbon and a bow on it to support all students. To add to Dr. Vieira's explanation about literacy, this is ahead of the July 2025 implementation of the literacy standards, which calls for a very structured MTSS approach, which we will have so that we can next year do a soft implementation of our literacy and numeracy and math ahead, and then we will be in full implementation the next year in July of 2025. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Webb. And I had mentioned that all of our school sites this year have done an MTSS plan. They've also done a professional development plan and a site plan. What we're really trying to do, I keep speaking of alignment, as Ms. Daisher is leading our LCAP rewriting of the plan this year, because it's a 3-year plan, we're really working on aligning our LCAP with our strategic plan, with our site plans. And what we're having the school sites do is they're going to incorporate the MTSS plan and the PD plan into that. So every site will have one plan that incorporates all of this, because that really does go into the case that we're trying to support the whole child. There is no individual section. It all works together. The last section of Focus Area 1 is technology. Again, this, when it came out, it was two things. One is we want to use technologies to support students and learning, but we always also want to have a way where our staff can easily access data and then use it to improve student achievement. Some of the things we're working on, again, I mentioned budget considerations before, so we're in a process now where we're evaluating all of our technology programs to really streamline those that are most efficient and actually most supportive of and engaging for our students. Also, we've done a lot of professional development that would support our staff in using technology to enhance their effectiveness in the classroom. One, and we're going to show an example of this in a minute, is artificial intelligence, AI. We hear a lot about that, and I know there's a lot of concern. We've had some very well-attended and well-done professional development with artificial intelligence on ways that it can really enhance our classrooms and actually save our teachers time by doing a lot of the research and other work in just a few minutes or a few seconds even sometimes. Also, we've done a lot of training with specifically our administrators on implementing our new data viz system, which is able to help us access some of our student data, especially some of the early interventions we want to implement because of some of the factors that we spoke about with our MTSS portion. I'd now like to invite up Courtney Straka, who you've already met, our professional development our program specialist of professional development. She's going to go talk a little bit about our AI training, and then after that, Mr. Matt Hinsey is going to come up, our coordinator of data and accountability, and he's going to go over a little bit of the data viz that we've worked with our sites on.
All right, thank you. PD has gone well this last semester. We had over 280 attendees for different PD sessions. Our AI one series has been the most popular with almost 150 people attending. AI, the most important part of doing AI workshops for teachers is making sure that we are showing how to use it in a meaningful way, in a responsible way, and in an appropriate way. And so a lot of the tools that we're bringing in are making sure that teachers can do that for themselves, but also can show students how to use AI in those same ways. So the two main things that we've been working with teachers on, there's a platform called Magic School. This is a great platform for teachers to use to help cut down their workload, but also to increase their effectiveness of reaching all students. So for instance, something that might take me an hour to research on how to best meet the needs of one of my students, I can now get the same information at my fingertips within 10 seconds. So it's really, really useful information. The Class Companion AI is a platform where teachers can use this with their students to help quickly improve their writing. And so looking at using it in formative ways so that students are getting in the moment suggestions, recommendations, and also social emotional help as they're writing is something that a teacher physically cannot get around a room and give 36 students immediate feedback on writing. And so we're seeing this being used in classrooms for students to really self-evaluate their own writing process and using the feedback that they're given to do that in a quicker fashion. So those are two platforms that we're really focusing on. The series, we're doing content specific, but then we're also including tomorrow night, going to be running one for how to use AI to meet the needs of our English learners. We're going to continue with the content series with math. We're going to do world language. We're also going to do one for special education, and then just kind of a catch-all for any teachers who couldn't make it to any of the ones specifically for their content area.
Thank you. It's exciting to show you some of the things we've been working on this year. One of the monitoring devices that we've developed here with me and John's team has been the monthly attendance monitoring. We've pushed this out to administrators, counselors, social workers, so they can see at their fingertips really quickly by school, by grade, and produce reports of students that are in an at-risk or a chronic or severe attendance shortage. So this allows them to see very quickly where the needs are to bring those students back in and who they really need to be targeting. The second one is what's called early intervention system, and what this does is it produces we use an algorithm to produce a score for students that are demonstrating either a severe, moderate, or a low risk for help. So, and it breaks it down by 3 different areas: attendance again, behavior, and grades. And you're able to kind of monitor them and come up with a group of students that you can target more to meet their needs. And that's kind of example here. So it's good stuff.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
So in closing, again, I think you can see that we spoke of the things we wanted to do last year, and through the work of the entire staff throughout the district, we're able to bring some of it together. And it's really just building out of the strengths that we have in all of our schools. It's trying to bring that together, align our work, and try to focus it on our strategic plan and just be real efficient with that. Again, it's not something that we're looking to direct our staff and what to do every day, but it's to try to create a structure and allow people to be as creative as they can, because I think that's our most valued resource. I used the term last year, common and diverse means we're trying to identify where we all want to go, but there's multiple ways to get there. The last thing I want to do, I'm going to introduce the whole Ed Services team here in a second, but I also wanted to say that this work couldn't be done without all the Ed Services team, and even though we do have some budget constraints, the majority, all the program specialists and the majority of, or most of the staff in Ed Services are paid for out of restricted, categorical, and grant funds. So it number one, supports our staff and supports our students. But number two, it is maintaining positions, additional positions in our district, and also it's taking the funding source away from general fund to very specialized funding sources. So it's got multiple tiers there that it's supporting our work here in the district. Real quickly, I just want to introduce the team that's here. Everybody knows Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, our Director of CTE and Student Support. Jan Dasher, Director for Special Programs. Dave LeBaron, who is up here, Director of Curriculum. Of course, John Carino in the back, who got all together for us, Director of Technology. Matt Hinsey, Coordinator of Data and Accountability, who is just up here. Julie Huffman, our Program Specialist for Science, was going to present tonight, but is under the weather. Of course, you met Courtney Straka, PD, James Webb, MTSS and Literacy, and Aaron Kirkland, English Language Arts. And Ariane Wilson didn't get to speak tonight, but she is our only support person in the district for English learners. And she not only oversees our program, she gets down there and individually at each school site knows the students and the teacher and does a tremendous job for one person. And then finally, who also couldn't make tonight is Kim Jimenez, who is our program specialist for math. That's it. We went through very quickly, but I'll be glad to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, Dr. Vieira, and thank you to everyone who presented and didn't present. I know the work that you are doing is really important. Thank you, Mr. Coleman, for these updates on the strategic plan. My initial question, I guess, is more of a global one. I went back to look at what we have on our website posted for the strategic plan, and then I'm remembering one of the previous presentations where we identified the action steps and the by-when dates of accomplishing things. Is there a way to incorporate that into these presentations? This is very helpful, amazing, wonderful progress and information, and I'm also wanting to know what we've actually gotten done and accomplished, because I wasn't sure from the way that we have what we intend to accomplish, which are our goals, versus how we are working on it, what's done, right? What we've completed. And I think the how we're working on it is intended to be kind of the how and the status, but it just wasn't as clear. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And so then my questions, Mr. Webb.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Mr. Webb.
Hello, Dr. Moore.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm very excited about the expanding literacy authorization grant, and that we'll be doing this for 5 cohorts. I'm just curious to know how many folks are in the current cohort 1.
Cohort 1 is 22, and then with every year, we are going to be expanding that. I am in conversations with Dr. Hoffman, and we are actually looking at applying for another grant and for our CTE to increase literacy for our CTE credentialed teachers, and looking at partnerships with businesses in the community to help support that work as well.
Excellent. That's excellent. Thank you.
That money will not come from the general fund. Just want to make sure that that's very clear.
Because it's a grant. My next question, last question on.
Are you finished with me?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
He's thinking.
I am wanting to ask about the attendance monitoring. So, and this is an easy question. I'm just wanting to know if this is actual data from our district, or is this like the data they send us of what you can get when you start using DataViz?
No, this is actually homegrown by me within the district. We take in the tools that DataViz, the company, has provided for us, and I've made it and modified it so it's actually pulling our data live. So they're getting the real-time results, the counselors and the administrators and social workers getting real-time results to help them pinpoint who they need to target.
Thank you, Mr. Hensey.
Yep.
And the reason I ask that is, again, related to the PCC conversation around attendance. It's real clear, and it's probably no one's surprise, and we know this, being on high school campuses, that seniors are absent much more than freshmen. Um, So thank you for this. I'm wondering how we can, again, incorporate this into information that we share with parents around the importance of attendance at every grade, not just the earlier grades. So thank you.
Anyone else have
I have
questions?
a question.
Yes.
For the early intervention program, once the student has been identified for early intervention, what would the intervention look like, or like how would it proceed?
Excellent question. Thank you so much for asking that. So that's going to fall under MTSS. It is going to be determined whether that is a Tier 2 or Tier 3 support. I know you see the pyramid. We want to look at it more as a layered approach because every student will always receive that best first instruction that Dr. Vieira had identified. What the schools are going to actually work on at the Tuesday training is looking at what criteria are they going to set for their Tier 2 intervention. So for example, if they look at a student who is chronically absent for X amount of days, what are they going to do to support that student? It's not just going to be, it's off with your head and you're failing every class. Instead, it is going to be about contacting home, finding out what the student may need, how the student might need to be supported. It also will involve counseling staff, social workers to work with that student to see what is the underlying issue. What we have found is looking at the behavioral and social emotional needs of students, it's generally not, I just don't want to be here. There's something else that we really need to dig and find out more information about. You can see a little bit of that in the plan that was on the slide, because in that plan, the school is using different check-ins, checks-outs with their counseling staff and other individuals at their site. Absolutely.
And I was also curious about the AI work, because I know that there's a lot of AI work that's being done for teachers, which is great. I do know that students, though, once they hear about the AI, they feel more comfortable to use AI for their work as well. So it's like, I mean, what could we do, or like what thoughts are kind of being made to like make sure that students aren't crossing that line to.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So what we're trying to do is show teachers tools that are useful not only for their work, but how do they incorporate it into their classrooms, into the lessons that they're using with their students? Because there are great AI platforms to increase your writing, to increase your reading, there's one AI platform that we're going to work with for the World Languages Department where you can practice having conversations in the language that you're learning with an AI person, right? And so we're just trying to inform teachers right now on how they can work those things into the lessons that they already have. So hopefully you'll start to see some stuff coming in. But you can always reach out also, because we can start adding more things in as students want to learn more things. We can put those into the workshops as well.
And Courtney, isn't Magic School also starting to roll out a student version as too?
They are. They were a little bit vague on what the tools are actually going to be. I think it's a very ever-evolving world right now, but they are going to be rolling out a student version as well. So as soon as that rolls out, we're going to see what we can use that for with our students. You're very welcome.
I have a question. Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
Sorry, Dr. Vieira. I did have one more question, and it relates to Ms. Wilson, working with our English learners. I know that her area of focus wasn't highlighted, but it feels like to me as I'm sitting back listening that it is an umbrella area over all of the components under strategic plan area 1. So I'm just wondering how you're seeing the work that we're doing for our English learners fitting into the things that we are highlighting. I'm wanting to know about how the conversations happen that always have a focus on, okay, how is this? And I know the MTSS looks at all students, and this specific focus around how this is impacting English learners as we think about AI, as we think about MTSS, as we think about attendance, all those pieces.
So it's a really good question, and the best part about everybody who's sitting here is we're all a team now. The last few years, it's been just me kind of managing all of these elements in a sea of lots of moving parts. So I've just really tried to be in every conversation with everything that's been going on with strategic plan and all the work that the program specialists are doing in their field to encompass the needs of the English learners in those areas. So I've partnered with Courtney for a lot of the EL focused AI and what the needs are for the teachers and the students in the classroom, working with Erin Kirkland with the performance task development and kind of being a part of how that fits in with reclassification and can it still be utilized as a tool for that need, working with James to make sure that our MTSS plan incorporates those supports that are needed for the English learners, particularly newcomers and things like that that might be on the periphery and not quite on that target level. And then working with Kim with our English learners and making sure we are teaching language in those math classes to ensure they're seeing success as well. So I don't have a specific like target. I've done these 5 things. It's been very spread out just to make sure that you know, we're all working together on the same page to ensure the needs of our ELs are included in all these plans. And I think it's really been great this year to have that support and develop that camaraderie with the team that we're all working together to ensure that our students are supported across the valley. So,
That's exactly what I was hoping and knew that you were going to be sharing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm not sure who it goes to. Do we still have the slides up, or are they gone? Did they go away? Can they come back? Thank you, Mr. Webb. Is it a challenge? There you, okay.
Which
Let's go
one?
to slide number 10 out of 14, the magic school. Is this something that's being used today?
Yes.
Okay, then my question, after Dara asked about AI and the student using it, on the second side of this, the class companion,
Yes.
is that being used today?
Yes.
So I'm sitting in a classroom and I don't want to do the assignment, then somebody's going to, person,
No.
entity?
No. Is going to do it for you? No. So what Class Companion does is the teacher can enter their writing prompt. The student then responds to the prompt, and with a preloaded rubric, the AI will score it based on the rubric, and it will give the student specific feedback on how to improve their response to that prompt. Then they get another chance to try it again, so they can use the immediate feedback that they're receiving to immediately improve their writing, and so they can keep trying and getting that immediate feedback so that they're in the moment improving.
So they're working on this assignment, and the first person says, I don't want to do it, and then the class companion says all this, and then some good advice is given, and the student starts to do better, and then the class companion kind of guides the student to what they need to do in the next step.
Yes.
And then when it's all done, it goes to the teacher?
Yes, and so the teacher can see on the backside, they can see the student's progress. They can also see if a student has copied and pasted anything in that is unoriginal to the student. But they can see the feedback for any student, so they can also see what the AI is recommending for the student so that they can reinforce that when they work with the student.
So this is live and working
Yes.
in what kind of classrooms?
So a lot of the teachers that are using it right now, they're ones that attended our AI workshops. So we see it a lot in AP classrooms where they're having to do the FRQs and those quick writing prompts. And this is just getting them to practice how to be better writers so that when they go to take the AP test, they'll have better
So
success.
could this also be used in a 10th grade English class?
Absolutely.
In an EL class?
Absolutely.
Okay, I see, and this is here now.
This is here now. It's wonderful to watch it work.
I
And
just rewatched a 60 Minutes that was talking about AI and what it can do and what it might do. And, you know, I see this as a big benefit. I also know that somewhere along the line, we're going to have some issues with it, but I think that this is wonderful. How long have we been using this?
We started using it our first AI workshop, and I need to give credit to David Williams. He's the instructional coach at Castaic. He has been spearheading all of these workshops, and then we've had different content area teachers come in to be the specialists for that content area. We did our first one in October, and we've been running with it ever since then. So we're just continually adding on. We also did a session here that last week of school in December for administrators, counselors, and anyone in the admin center that wanted to learn how to use the tools as well.
Well, here we are in 2024. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you to everyone. I appreciate it.
I've got a question. I don't know if
Joe?
he's going to be able to answer, but
Okay.
as Dr. Moore was pointing to something that came to me, it says here the AI tool to help students improve their writing skills with immediate feedback and suggestions. And, you know, I played with AI way back when it was first coming out and what have you. How does a teacher know that the product they're getting isn't totally written by AI? Because I know that you can make suggestions, you can ask it to have a more of a feel this way, more of a feel that way. And you're right, it rewrites it virtually in seconds.
Well, two things. And that's a very good way to look at it. We need to be cautious also because we need to use AI responsibly. But what we're showing teachers how to use this as informative. So these aren't necessarily grades that are going in the grade book. This is learning how to write to become a better writer. And so what you can do on the backside as a teacher is you can see where they've copied and pasted things in. We're also suggesting that teachers use GoGuardian, which we already have, so that they can limit a student's access to other websites while they're using this. So teachers do have a lot of control on their end as far as being able to make sure that it is authentic, what's being put on there. But you'll also know your students' writing, and so sometimes when a very, very well-written piece comes in, you say, oh, okay. But I do want to say also with the AI, the students have the control to say to the teacher, they can flag it and say, I believe that the AI scored me incorrectly. And so then the teacher and the student can have a conversation of, well, let's look at the rubric together. Let's see why it scored you here, here, here. And the teacher can override and tell the student, you know what, no, actually, I feel like I would have given you this score, or actually, here's why the AI was right. Here's where in the rubric it would score you down.
And I think overall, it's kind of going from the fear of what it's going to be to how can we use this as a tool to really get deeper in our instruction and learning. And I think that's what the PD, the general point of it is.
Yes.
And let me speak to you as a parent of a child who used 61% of AI on his final essay. Turnitin.com flags it as well because there is an algorithm in AI with the way that sentence structures are, and it can flag it and it can find it. So we have a number of guardrails to do it. And as the parent of that child, he got an F, and that was at my request.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you. That's a way of saying we need to move on. Okay. We're to the enrollment report.
Yes, we are.
That was a question.
Yes, we are.
I mean, that was a bold statement. The enrollment report.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, everyone. Last September, we provided the board with an enrollment report with a promise to follow up once we had reached the official CBEDS date. Now, earlier this evening, we were admonished not to use acronyms without explaining them. And so let me just clarify what CBEDS means. That is the California Basic Educational Data System. And in the context I'm going to be using it, it is the official date in October that determines our annual enrollment numbers. So just for historical perspective, you can see on this slide the declining enrollment trend in the Hart District since the 2018-19 school year. In fact, our enrollment has declined by 8.1% since that school year. The next to last bar on the right represents our official enrollment for the current year, 23-24 school year, which is 20,653 students in the first week of October 2023. The very last bar on the right is the Hart District's enrollment as of the first week of the spring semester, which is 20,610, a decrease of 43 students since that October CBEDS date.
Dr. Nielsen, do you know what that equates to dollar-wise?
I would have to rely on my good friend, Mr. Peshek, for that one.
And he's looking at the ceiling like, I don't want to answer this. I mean, those are a lot of students.
Like 1824.
Each student's approximately $12,500 as per student per year.
So
About $25 million roughly, a little bit less than
I
that.
should ask the CPA. Yeah, so we're
So
losing.
it's a sizable number, yeah.
While expenses continue to increase.
Well,
I said while our expenses continue to increase.
correct.
Okay, this slide shows the enrollment of our junior high schools this year as compared to last year. And overall, our junior high enrollment has increased by 92 students from last year. You can see in the bottom right-hand cell there. However, the same cannot be said about our comprehensive high schools. With the exception of Canyon High School, each of our high schools has decreased in enrollment, and overall, our comprehensive high school enrollment has decreased by 301 students. And our alternative schools have declined as well, with an overall decreased enrollment of 109 students from last year. And I just tried to summarize at the very bottom there that with the loss of 43 students since last October, Hart District student population has declined by 361 students from our official enrollment date in the 22-23 school year. Are there any questions I can answer?
So 18-19 was 22,434. Do you have any idea what our all-time high was if we were at 22,600 2 years before that, just out of curiosity?
I do not have the all-time high, but I can get that number for you.
Yeah, okay, just curious.
You mean since we've been on the board or from 18?
Maybe since 2009.
Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Dr. Nielsen, for this report. A couple quick questions. The 8.1%, I've heard that number is around 1,800.
Yeah, it's
1,800.
1,824 students.
824. Thank
Which,
you.
looking at the CBEDS in 23-24, am I right in seeing that that is equal to the enrollment around at West Ranch? That's what that number over that time frame,
It's pretty close, yes.
we've lost enough students that it looks like it could be a high school. Okay.
And if I can, a quick calculation that just to follow up on a question someone asked was that if my math is correct, if we had 361 students lost since last year, and it's approximately $12,500 per student, that's a loss of about $4.5 million in a year. And so that gives you some sense of kind of the implications of the decline that we're seeing.
And I know the junior highs show an overall increase, and they will, of course, eventually feed to our high schools um, which is positive because that will help this 301 number. But my, what do we do with the 43 between October of last year and January of this year? What data do we have on the why or what's changed that's impacting that decline? I get overall decline in year over year with people aging up, with the cost of living going up, economic changes, and these could be related to that too. But in the middle of a school year as a parent, it would be hard for me unless my job absolutely demanded it to pick up and move my child in the middle of a school year.
Yeah, overall, there's been a population decline in the state of California overall, and that decline happens all year round. We have taken a look at some of the landing spots for, where these students are leaving us for, and some of our OFL, Mission View, they've moved, they've gone to, either out of state or other districts outside of the Santa Cruz Valley.
The OFL and Mission View, which are our charter schools, so I didn't know this number incorporated.
No, it does not.
That's where
does
they've
not.
gone to.
Oh, you're saying
does
that's where
not.
they've gone
Yeah.
to?
Yes, that's where they have gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the questions that's similar to what you're asking, Dr. Moore, which is a question that I have is this decline across the course of the year similar to what we see in previous years, or is this an accelerated decline? I don't have that answer, but that would be an interesting question to know. Do we see that yet?
It's that, but I really want to know how deep we dug into finding out where'd they go, what happened. 43 is significant enough for me to want to know where they went.
Don't
Yeah,
they
and we
request
have-
transcripts when they move?
Yes.
Don't they have to request a transcript for the new school district?
They do. We've also spoken with our principals at a recent ADCO about, when the registrar has a family that is checking out, that they alert an administrator to conduct an exit interview right there on the spot to see, what is happening, why is this happening, and maybe, if there is an issue that can be addressed, maybe we can head that off.
I'd love to see something around that in a future Friday memo, because we know there are lots of reasons, and if there are things in the middle of the semester that we can do, I hate to use this metaphor, to stop the bleed, I'd like to know what it's causing it to start with.
I kind of think it's just a general decline in people leaving California. There's a lot of people leaving California. I'm aware of many other school districts that have declining enrollment that didn't have that 3 to 5 years ago. I don't know that for sure. Dr. Moore raises a good question, but I just believe it's kind of a general decline in leaving the state. It's very expensive to live here, and unfortunately, people are going elsewhere.
Yeah, and Mr. Jensen, to answer your earlier question, back in 2009-10, our enrollment was 23,167.
23,167?
Yes.
Any other question? I just want to state here that I'm optimistic. We're building 2,000 homes in Santa Clarita. I think this is going to come back. Someone's going to buy those homes. If not, then builders probably shouldn't be building them.
And on that note, if I can just say this is an important piece of information that we have returned to Davis Demographics to ask for them to actually do some work on that. And Mr. Peshk, if I'm not mistaken, we were looking at sometime in February for them to actually make their report. They're hoping to give us some of our preliminary feedback. So hoping that some of the things that you, President Storley, are saying are true, and that'll give some sense of what's in store. So
Is there any way to ask them if they could look at where they're going to tell us how many we're losing, and that we're losing this much, and this is going on. Is there any way they could tell us whether these people are moving out of the area, what the overall population is out here, and how it's declined?
Sorry, could you restate that, Mr. Messina?
Probably not, but I'll try. So I want them, there's got to be a way for them to tell us maybe what the population has been in the Santa Clarita Valley over the last few years and how it's declined, and have they moved out of the area? Yeah, the bigger
Overall
picture.
demographic?
Yeah.
Bigger population.
Yeah, that should be a part of,
That's a big
it's
part
a
of
pretty
what-
substantial
The challenge is
report.
people may be moving in, but do they have kids, and do they have
Right.
kids that are going to our district? Because housing's really, really expensive, and so you could have people that maybe can only afford it are those that maybe don't have kids, or they're older in age, and that's the big challenge.
That is a challenge.
So I just did a calculation on what you gave, Colin, the 23,167 versus where we are right now at 12,500. It's about $32 million decrease in the budget from
Right.
that time
The-
period.
The ADA wasn't 12.5 in 2009.
True, but just if we had stayed, now where we were at 2009, we'd have $32 million more.
Okay.
A question.
Yes.
Another thing is, I mean, will we be able to look at the Sulphur Springs School District and see like their numbers too, to see if it's increasing or decreasing? Because like maybe over time.
Dora, can you just speak up just a little bit?
For the deaf guy, make it louder.
Yeah, I was saying that maybe you can look at the numbers for the Sulphur Springs District and see if like they would eventually level up to William St. Hart, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, a couple of responses to that. One is Davis Demographics. They do talk to the feeder districts as well, and they have those numbers to share with us. But also, we collect, in the spring semester especially, we coordinate with the feeder districts and collect what their enrollments are, and we have that updated on a weekly basis. So as you know, leading up to the end of the semester, we have a pretty good idea of who's showing up from the feeder districts next year.
Can I share a couple pieces of information that might be of interest? Just anecdotally, there was a KHTS article a couple months ago, and it was about enrollment loss throughout the valley, and they had reported feedback from each of the districts, and they noted that Sulphur Springs was reporting that their enrollment was flat, essentially. In other words, they weren't losing or they're gaining. That I think has something to do with where housing is being built and the affordability of housing in certain areas. Saugus said briefly that they were hoping for a slight increase because of some of the new construction. And Newhall and Castaic were both reporting continued declines. But those were just some brief comments. And one other thing, if I may, that's just of interest, thank you for running this data, Debbie, the amazing Debbie Dunn. But remember I asked what the decline that we have seen thus far between seabeds and January. A similar look at last year was we saw a reduction of 76 students last year. So there is a little similar pattern.
Little bit of optimism.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. Anyone else? Okay, Dr. Nielsen, the next one is yours.
Yes, thank you again. In looking at ways to increase revenue, we've just talked about one of our challenges, enrollment, but I want to talk now, I want to shift to thoughts about ADA and attendance rate.
I'm sorry, I thought we were on school year calendar.
We are.
That's okay, sorry.
I will make the connection in just a moment.
Thank you.
Yes. So in looking at ways to increase revenue through increasing ADA or avoid taking hits to ADA, we have made a change to the school calendar for next year. So in looking at ways to maximize attendance, one of the biggest hits we take in attendance is the day after Halloween. It is typically one of the lowest attended days every school year. And so our feeder districts have November 1st off, and a lot of our kids with younger siblings then stay home as well. Or maybe families think that this is a good opportunity to maybe take a short trip somewhere, and so they pull kids out.
They're having to watch their younger siblings.
Yeah, that's correct.
because
That's what I
it's
meant with
not
the
a day
first
off for
part.
the parents.
That's right. They're
Sure.
staying home to watch their younger siblings or possibly taking a brief vacation. So we have worked with our union partners to come up with some creative ideas here. So November 1st falls on a Friday in 2024. So we are making that a non-student staff day. And we're going to back up the start of school for students to Monday, August 12th. Instead of starting on the 13th, they're going to start on the 12th. We can't just cross a day off of the calendar and not make it up in some fashion. The start date for returning teachers would then be Wednesday, August 7th instead of Thursday, August 8th. Are there any questions?
Well, I think that's an excellent idea. I think that starting school Tuesday or Wednesday of the week never did make sense. Start the school on Monday, and then we take the advantage of taking the November 1st off, and hopefully by the 4th they come back to school.
You call that the Halloween effect?
Uh-huh. Very good, very good.
I think that's
Does
a good point, yeah.
Does the board need to take action since it's a calendar? We usually adopt calendars.
This is an information item, and as we have set the calendars since I've been in my position, I think the few years before I began the position, staff has set the calendars and has informed the board, but it has not been an action item at the board.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. The next one is Dr. Vieira.
Yes, thank you. Actually, it's quick. There were no Williams complaints filed for the last quarter between October 1st and December 31st.
Thank you,
All
Dr.
right.
Vieira. Next, we have action items. And the first one is Dr. Vieira.
Yep, thank you again. It's my pleasure tonight to recognize all of our school counselors who are celebrated for the vital and complex work they do to support all of our students to achieve success in school and beyond. Through this resolution, we honor our school counselors for being actively engaged in helping students examine their strengths, interests, and talents, for working in partnerships with parents, focusing on positive ways to enhance student academic, career, and social emotional development, and working with teachers and other educators to provide an educational system where students can realize their potential. Additionally, the work of school counselors helps increase student achievement and provide a much-needed resource for students, parents, teachers, and administrators. And for these reasons and many more, I recommend that the board approve resolution number 23/24-19, recognizing February 5th through 9th as National School Counseling Week.
We have great counselors in our district, and I'm always grateful for them. I move to approve resolution number 23/24-19.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Jensen, second by Dr. Moore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
And the president says aye. Thank you. Let's move on to item B, which is cut off on my thing, but I can find it. Dr. Vieira.
Thank you. Career technical education is not only a key component of the educational experience for students, but it is necessary to ensure that competitive skilled workers are capable of maintaining careers in high wage, high skill, and in-demand career fields that are vital to keeping competitive in the global economy. CTE doesn't replace academic learning, but it links secondary and post-secondary education in a sequenced series of courses, aligns curriculum with industry validated standards, and provides hands-on work-based learning experiences that enable students to apply their skills. For these reasons, I'd like to recommend that the board approve resolution number 23/24-20, proclaiming February as Career Technical Education Month.
Move to approve resolution 23/24-20, proclaiming February 1st through the 29th, 2024 as Career Technical Education Month.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Moore, second by Mr. Messina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
And the president says aye. Now we're on to C, Heroes of Color Services Agreement. Mrs. Dasher. Hi.
Hi, good evening. I have the privilege in my job to coordinate and oversee categorical money. So these funds have to be spent in very specific ways with extreme restrictions, but sometimes we get to do very unique things with it. This year, we rolled over a huge sum of Title I carryover, we call that, and we're able to use that at the district level for our schools who have students from low-income families and high numbers of homeless students, and bring in sometimes some very unique programs. So this year, with that Title I carryover money, one of our incredible social workers, Mr. Ira Roundsville, who used to be on a school site, is now at the district office and in charge of our equity programs. Ira brought an idea to me and asked if we had some possible funding for it to do some equity work, and I immediately thought this might be something very awesome to do with this Title I carryover funds. So I'm going to allow him to talk about the program that we are presenting as a proposal to see if we could spend some of this one-time grant funding money on this particular program. So Ira.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you. So about a year ago, sometime last school year, I had an opportunity to hear a presentation from a gentleman with the Heroes of Color program, and he presented the Junior Entrepreneurship program. Hearing his story and also hearing the program itself made me connect with the students that I had been working with when I was a social worker at that time, still at Saugus, students who felt underrepresented, unseen, unheard, and also just at promise, formal term at risk. And so this, not only did his story resonate with some of the students that I had been meeting with, but most importantly, I felt that this program could really benefit them. Fast forward this year to my new position as a district social worker for culture and climate, I've also had an opportunity to go and visit other campuses in our district, and again, meet and interact with and engage with those students who could benefit from this program. So the benefit is that, number one, it leans into our core value of number one, creativity, as well as leaning into creating students who are opportunity ready. This program allows students to learn entrepreneurship, and more importantly, it actually positions them. The funding will actually pay for all the art materials that they'll use, as well as the supplies that they'll use to actually, at the end of the program, have a showcase or an event, if you will, where they can actually sell the things that they create, as well as get customized orders for some of their creations. So the level of opportunity that they have to again give them skills that will go beyond. It's like teaching. Teaching is an investment. When they learn things about math, history, and reading and such, it's an investment in how they can use it in the future. And again, these same tools build upon that. Outside of getting the free supplies to do the art, there's a book that they have that there will be provided called the Freelance Hustle, which includes information on how to generate multiple revenue streams, strategic networking, and marketing techniques. So the program includes some lecture in the beginning, but it primarily is designed to allow them the opportunity to create their artwork. The criteria for students to participate, the primary criteria is they have to already know how to draw and or paint, because it's not teaching students how to draw or be artists. They have to already be artists. But we're also, again, as I mentioned before, when I heard the story, it identifies some of our at promise students who may be low in self-confidence, who may have this skill, but they aren't utilizing it. And I know that for a fact in having, again, personal conversations with students who already draw, but that's their outlet, that's their way of just kind of supporting themselves. But there's an opportunity now for it to increase their self-confidence, because now they can actually earn income. And as we mentioned, we are targeting Title I schools where some of our students are really prioritizing trying to figure out how to support their families and help support their families. And so it allows them to do that right now. The program lasts for 6 weeks, and it's 3 hours per week. And again, at the conclusion of that, we'll have an opportunity for them to do a showcase where we invite the community to come out and support them, not just their family and friends, but the community can come out and support them and purchase their art creations. Lastly, the things that they'll create include skateboard decks, hats, canvases, backpacks, and tennis shoes. So they'll have 5 options, but they'll do 4 of those projects. So 4 of those items they'll actually create during this period, and those are the things that they'll be able to make available for purchase. And again, people can see them, and if they want them personalized or customized, they'll have an opportunity to get orders during that showcase.
Just being part of this program has got to build self-confidence, whether they can ever sell or make some, but just being part of it and having someone say that you have value is a wonderful thing. And we've got this money, and we want to spend it on the right kind of thing, and this sounds great.
Looks like a great program. I'll move to approve Heroes of Color Services Agreement.
I second. I do have a question.
Sure.
Hart and La Mesa, and we have so much need.
Mhm.
How do we do just 2 schools?
So actually, it's stretched across 4 schools. There are 3 high schools. So Castaic, Saugus, and Hart High School will be participating, and then La Mesa is the one junior high school. So again,
Castaic, Hart,
I mean,
Saugus.
Right, Castaic,
Castaic,
Hart, Saugus,
Hart, and Saugus,
La Mesa.
and then La Mesa.
Okay, I guess I'm reading this wrong. I just see the 2 up here in the proposal.
Dan, I have a question. I'm sorry, Ms. Dasher, I have a question.
Clarifying.
For Ms. Dasher, just one second.
Can
We've
you
got.
finish answering this
I'm
one, though?
sorry,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
So what, I'm sorry, what?
In the proposal, it just identifies La Mesa and Hart. That's,
Oh, no. So again, so the program in and of itself generally supports 30 students. So between the 3 high schools, we're identifying 10 students at each of the 3 high schools to give us the 30 students. And then La Mesa will have 30 students total. So Castaic, Hart, and Saugus are 3 high school campuses, and then La Mesa is the one junior high campus.
Ms. Dasher, this $70,000, do we have more?
We have 330,000
That we
in
must
that we
spend?
carried over. So yes, we have a budget plan for all of that, and there was still a big lump that wasn't
I
identified
was going to
yet.
say, can we double this?
I don't know that we can double it, but I love that you would want to. It would be great if we can, by all means. We have other Title I carryover needs that the Title I schools have identified that we also will pay with it. And then if there's extra, by all means, it still goes back to the sites and programs like this as to our discretion to use it in the way that we can see fit. And to clarify, I wrote Hart High School as the location where it could happen, knowing that those 3 are coming together to be combined. And yes, Mrs. Storley, if I can do more, we will always do more. But we're going to start with 2 cohorts at 35,000 each for 70 total.
We have a motion by Dr. Moore.
by Mr. Jensen.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jensen, the second
By Dr. Moore.
was Dr. Moore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
I do have a question as well. Why is Canyon High School not one of the schools that is participating, given the fact that they're a Title I school?
Kenyon High School is not on the list because I hadn't done my residency at Kenyon at that time, and because we were limited on the number of students. We're really using this as a pilot, so I really appreciate the question of can we spend more, because if I had my way, it would be at all of our campuses and all of our schools because they all could benefit from it. But there was no other than me, again, having spent time. So let me just go back. Part of what I've done since I've begun is done residencies at our campuses, and I've spent at least 5 days on each campus. I'm currently actually doing my residency at Canyon this week. I just began on Tuesday. So that's the only reason why Canyon as a Title I did not get included. But again, the desire is that this is a pilot, and we want to be able to do it at the other Title I schools as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's 30 students from La Mesa who will. So La Mesa is the only junior high that will be able to participate.
For the pilot, yes.
For the pilot.
Right now.
I mean, it just seems that's a lot. That's $1,000 per student. I'm just wondering if there's another program that would offer the same thing, variation of the same thing, but be able to offer it to more students so that there would be maybe, just seems like a $500. We could maybe find somebody that could do it for $500 and have it meet the needs of twice as many students.
Do you understand what she's saying there for the junior high school? That's a lot of money for 30 students.
Sure, I understand that perspective. I think as it relates to this program specifically, part of the draw is, again, the inclusivity and the representation component. Again, as part of the draw, the conversations that I had with students were students, again, who feel as those who aren't represented on our campuses and aren't as included. And so that's why So there may be other programs that might economically or cost-wise be cheaper, if you will. However, they don't have the same appeal, and it's not the same component as to what the motivation and objectives are of this particular program.
Okay, Ms. Wilson, we're waiting for your vote.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing from you is that you have seen a great deal of success with this particular program, that you feel it's worth this amount of money.
Yes.
I've heard, yes.
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 Okay, my vote is aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
President says aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving on to D, Mr. Peshek.
Thank you, President Storley. In the summer of 2022, the legislature and the governor approved Assembly Bills 181 and 185, respectively, establishing the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Discretionary Block Grant. There were a number of allowable uses originally in AB 181 for these one-time funds, which were expanded in AB 185, basically to make it an unrestricted one-time funding source that could be used for any operational function within the district. These funds are available for expenditure and encumbrance through the 25-26 fiscal year. One requirement for the use of these funds is the adoption of a board-approved expenditure plan. The governor originally proposed cutting half and then 1/3 of this block grant and asking school districts to repay it after the initial apportionment had already been granted to schools. That was later reduced by the legislature to a very modest 1% reduction. For those reasons, the board and staff have held off on developing any plan because the state had been telling us they were going to sweep part of the funds. At this time, we're bringing forward a plan that's before you this evening to use part of those funds to address some of the budget shortfalls that we're going to review here in the next couple of board items, and also to provide flexibility for the board to use the remainder of the grant funds for either fiscal stabilization or negotiations at a future time as needed. At this time, barring any questions, recommend the board approve item 9D and approve.
Move to approve the Arts,
expenditure
Music,
plan.
and Instructional Materials Block Grant Expenditure Plan as presented.
I have a second.
I'll second, but I have a question. I know we have broad categories here, operational costs, and then of course one-time fiscal stability and negotiations. What is included in the 2.5 million, the operational costs?
Fiscal stability,
No, the 2.5, the operational costs.
that will go directly to supplement the general fund balance.
Okay, so no specific.
No specific,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
So I have a motion by Mr. Jensen, a second by Dr. Moore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
The president says aye. Thank you. Moving on to E. And this is again, Mr. Peshek.
Thank you, President Storley, members of the board, and our community. This evening, we'll be reviewing a proposed fiscal stability plan, which must be adopted by the board and submitted to the LA County Office of Education prior to January 31st. A budget is inherently a projection that reflects information available at the time of development, forecasts future revenues and spending, and includes assumptions which change as current policy and decisions are made at both a state and local level. As I'll share with the board and community this evening, the past 8 weeks have demonstrated that the budget is a living and changing document. On January 10th, the governor of California presented his 24-25 budget plan. Every school district in the state has been anxiously awaiting this update to see what changes to the cost of living adjustment, also known as a COLA, for the 24-25 school year, and potentially the 2 following years were being proposed by the governor. While the news was not ideal or great, it could have been much worse. The governor proposed in his budget that the state has a $37.9 billion revenue shortfall from tax collections. However, the Legislative Analyst's Office had a much higher number at over $60 billion. The governor's focus in his budget focuses on students, continuing to support ongoing programs to address COVID-19 pandemic issues as well as current initiatives, and does not propose new initiatives or new programs on a state level. And as I just referenced, to quote the Legislative Analyst's Office in their analysis, which was released shortly after the governor's proposal, quote, "The governor's budget revenue projection is $15 billion higher than the LAO's. This revenue estimate is plausible, but optimistic. On the spending side, there are strengths and weaknesses to the governor's approach. In particular, the governor's reserve withdrawal is reasonable, and we think focusing on spending-related solutions is warranted. However, significant spending-related solutions pose challenges, and the budget lacks a plan for implementing his proposed reductions." So those are some sobering words to keep in mind as we're looking at today's numbers, as well as what the LAO is looking at for outlying years. So we'll go through a little bit of good and a little bit of bad. The good is the state wisely set aside money over the last few years to fully fund these K-12 school special reserve, as well as using one-time monies over the last few years to bolster the state emergency reserve, neither of which is sufficient to address the LAO's projection of a $60 billion plus revenue shortfall. The other news is that a COLA in 24-25, the proposed reduction to the cost of living adjustment for 24-25 was a gut punch to districts. As the board and the community remember, at our first interim report in December, the district adopted the LA County Office of Education's guidance that we lower our cost of living adjustment for the 24-25 school year and the projected revenue from 3.94% down to 1%. That was a significant hit to our bottom line. There had been talk that the governor would come back with a slightly higher COLA. The number we heard a few days was 1.27%, which would have been a welcome increase. Unfortunately, it went the opposite direction, and the governor proposed reducing it further from 1% down to 0.76% for 24-25. This slide is informational, but I think it's important that the board and the community see graphically the difference between the aggressive budget the state adopted in January without all of the information, because as everybody remembers, tax returns were delayed twice And so they just didn't have all the facts when they were developing the state budget. The governor, and that's in red, the governor's budget proposals are in yellow, and the LAO's analysis and projections are in gray in the center. And you can see where on personal income tax, the governor and the LAO aren't too terribly far apart. And then corporate taxes, they aren't too terribly far apart. Sales and use tax, they've got some wide variations, but pay attention to the difference between red and yellow. Red, that adopted budget, those revenue projections were much more aggressive than the reality we're now faced with. What wasn't in the education budget? The good news, so to speak, at this time, they are proposing no cuts, deferrals, or sweeps from categorical grant programs. Deferrals are, just for everybody's information, are a tool that the state has previously utilized to improve the state's cash flow, not school districts, colleges, universities who receive funding from the state. What happens should the state implement deferrals at a later time? The district has an expectation of a certain revenue amount during the year, and we receive payments throughout the year at regularly established intervals. When deferrals come into play, if we're due a payment from the state, say in October, the state can say, oh, by the way, we're deferring your payment until June. It's up to you to figure out how to deal with not having that money for that period of time. And traditionally, that has forced school districts or other agencies to go out and take out what are called TRANs, which are tax revenue anticipation notes. They're kind of a line of credit, and we have to pay interest just like any homeowner would if they took out a line of credit on their house. So it costs the district money when the state implements deferrals. So we're happy they haven't done it at this point, but this is January and we're not to May yet. There's still a lot of time for more data points to come in, and the governor will be revising his budget again. You'll notice I had Wimpy up there, as I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. That's deferrals. To transition us into what that looks like for the Hart District and the fiscal stability plan work that's been going on since October here in the district. As we previously reviewed, we have 4 big factors affecting our budget. Enrollment is declining, as Dr. Nielsen demonstrated in his report. Average daily attendance has significantly decreased pre-COVID to post-COVID. And we've reviewed that with the board previously. And we've shared anecdotally that through the end of November, we've seen increases in average daily attendance, which is great news. And I will share a update that takes us through the end of December here in a few minutes. We also have increasing expenditures. One area that we'll talk about, special ed. Our costs to administer that program continue to increase year over year. And the cost of living adjustment, when we're talking about COLA, I just mentioned the decline the governor shared with us, down to 0.76. But yesterday, we received notification from FCMAT, which is the Financial Crisis Management Assistant Team, which is another one of the state's financial advisory organizations. It's actually a state chartered organization. And those are the folks that come in and help districts in financial distress. And they updated all of us yesterday morning that there had been downward adjustments for the 25-26 and the 26-27 cost of living adjustments. So all 3 years of the upcoming fiscal year projections have been downgraded from a revenue perspective. So when we adopted the budget in June, 23-24 through 25-26, we were looking at, because we look at a 3-year adoption cycle, that bottom line, $670,000 in unassigned and unappropriated. That's basically the savings account that isn't spoken for. But we knew that we were deficit spending and we would have to make some adjustments and right-size the district. Unfortunately, as I shared before, in the period of 8 weeks, and literally, if you look at the 2 bottom bullets, November 16th, we received a memo from LACO, the County Office of Education, reduced from 3.94% down to 1. January 16th, yesterday, 2 months later to the day, FCMAT released the lower projections for the 2 other years. So we've had 3 budget change from a revenue projection perspective in 8 weeks. That's why Mr. Jensen and I say the budget is a living document. And we will have more changes when the May revise comes about, or any additional information that's necessarily provided to us by the state or county.
Mr. Peshek, do you have a slide later on that actually quantifies the amount of less money that we are receiving as a result of those 3 reductions in COLA?
I do, Mr. Coleman,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Coleman, just to answer your question before we get to the slide, so that 3.94 to 1%, $22 million over a 3-year period. The move from 1% to 0.76%, the governor projected, $1.8 million loss on top of the $22 million. And the changes to 25-26 and 26-27 to basically $3 million. So $27 million over a 3-year period of time in lost revenue that's come about in the last 8 weeks. Mentioned before, as a reference point, we turned in our budget, the county reviewed it, they came back and said, we're concerned about your deficit spending ratio, and the percentage that it's dipping into your reserve is increased and is too steep in our opinion, and we're requiring you to develop a fiscal stability plan. At first interim, I would note that we did make some assumptions, because in talking with the board, Dr. Moore had some questions, our union partners had some questions when we looked at our assumptions for enrollment, and staff, Ms. Brittany Kaczynski, our Director of Fiscal Services, did an analysis. We shared it with the state, and I've shared it with school services, and they felt that our new assumption for a 3-year average in tracking our enrollment was a reasonable new assumption, and so that was included in first interim, and which was good. And I mentioned before, we also adjusted our attendance, average daily attendance projections using a similar model and arriving at a 3-year average model. And that, I shared before, pre-COVID, we had a much higher average daily attendance. Post-COVID, we were averaging 92.99 for those 3 years. And if you look at the right side of this slide, you can see that all of our schools have made progress. So what we're looking for is this trend to continue, and to continue into the spring up until we take the spring snapshot at period 2. And then we take that snapshot of what average daily attendance is up to that point in the spring, and we submit that to the state. So great increases. The overwhelming majority have increased by over 1%. There's one outlying school. And I would make note that La Mesa and Golden Valley have done an outstanding job in increasing. They've increased La Mesa almost 3%, and Golden Valley just over 2%. So excellent to see those increases are maintaining, because that's how we're funded, average daily attendance.
Mr. Peshek, the
Yes, Dr. Moore.
average before the pandemic was 96%.
95.7, yes.
And now it's at 93.
That was the post-COVID average, yes.
Post-COVID. I'm thinking about that in terms of dollars too. Is there a number for that? The difference?
That equated to $7 million a year in lost revenue.
Just attendance, okay.
Yeah.
From 3%.
Yeah, that variance, as we showed in a previous report, equaled $7 million in lost revenue a year. You bet. So, as I mentioned, we received a letter on November 16th directing us to change from 3.94 to 1%, and we did that at first interim. And so that changed our assumptions, and we came back with a qualified 3-year budget between 23-24 and 25-26. And it also had a negative impact on the outlying year. The governor, on January 10th, lowered another 0.25%. And then yesterday, we received news that 25-26 is reducing from 3.19 to 2.73, and 3.16 is reducing to 3.11 in 26-27. Again, these numbers can change if things get better, but that's not what we're hearing from the LAO's office. So the statutory COLA, as you can see, has shifted by 3.18%, 0.56%, and 0.08% for those 3 years as we look towards a June budget adoption. Here's a graphical representation of those numbers that we've been talking about. And you can see how each one of those actions has reduced our local control funding formula revenues from the state. And again, that represents from budget adoption to the far right column, $27 million a year, or $27 million over 3 years. To address the issues identified by the LA County Office of Education and our own team, and also to address the issues that have presented themselves over the last 8 weeks. We've been working on a fiscal stability plan for a couple of months, and this is the proposed plan on how we're going to address these shortfalls. Staff has identified potentials for increases in revenue, potential layoffs, reductions in force, which we certainly hope to address through attrition of $21.3 million. General fund expenditure reductions of $10.8 million. And now with the board's approval of the arts and music expenditure reduction, an additional reduction of $2.7 million, or you could look at it as 2.5 in additional fund stabilization and $200,000 in program sweeps. We also have some additional program reductions of $8 million. That takes us to our fiscal stability plan projection, which will be shared with the LA County Office of Education. And as you can see, these actions that we're asking the board to approve tonight for submission to the LA County Office of Education and authorize staff to begin work on implementing these proposals. I start with the left column. This year, we'll have modest adjustments that we can actually implement because we are partway through the year already. But you'll note, that budget deficit on the third line down, negative 21.358583. Those numbers prior to development of this plan were escalating every year. Or I should say the deficit was growing larger on a yearly basis based on our projections. And with the implementation of this fiscal stability plan, we believe that the three columns that are highlighted in pink or salmon, whatever your scope of vision is on your monitor, wherever you are, those are the years that we have to adopt in June for our new budget. And if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, our unassigned and unappropriated again, where that was a negative number on a prior slide. This work, while we are still deficit spending and we still have work to do in outlying years and opportunities for the state to change their COLA projections, at this time, should everything go as planned and proposed, we will be able to positively certify. Now, I would caution the board, the $8 million we're showing that's currently based on this projection and us being able to accomplish all of the proposals in the allotted time period before the beginning of next school year. That is an ideal situation. There could be additional changes. The governor could revise his COLA and budget projections.
A living document.
It's a living document. We have costs, just as folks have realized cost increases at home, our costs continue to grow. And as I mentioned before, special ed costs continue to escalate, and that is going to be a primary focus for us in reviewing how to support that team in identifying efficiencies moving forward. But there's also, we could have an unforeseen expenditure come through that could also hit that $8 million. So I would just, it's not written in stone. As you said, Mr. Jensen, it is a living document.
Does the term plausible but optimistic apply here too, perhaps?
I think, Mr. Coleman, we could use plausible but optimistic here.
I have a question.
Ms. Storley?
I'm sure other people do. The deficit, 21 million, and then in the next year it's 16, so we're doing better. And then it's 13. How do we know that in 2026 the deficit is going to rise again?
So, Ms. Storley, it's all based on assumptions.
Yes.
And so what staff does when they're developing the budgets, they're looking at our current expenditure levels. That's a baseline. And so the base assumption is if you have that expenditure this year, you're going to have that expenditure next year unless there's an adjustment. Then they're looking at, okay, what has been the average rate of increase in costs in budget items and applying those increases. And so at every point along here, there's a number of factors that weigh in.
But we were doing better at
Right.
13 million, and then we go to 15 million. So 16 to 13 to 15.
Yeah, and those are, and I might put Ms. Krasinski on the spot for that outlying year, because she could get into more of the technical details. But I would just remind the board that we're still declining in enrollment. There's things
Okay.
happening there.
But we were
So these
doing better.
numbers, yeah. enrollment and ADA are changing still every year as well.
Okay, well, I don't want to belabor it, but we're at 16 million, and then we're at 13. That's not good to be deficit $13 million, but then we go to 15. It's just hard to understand.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of components to those figures that we calculate and those assumptions that we apply. Aside from our revenue numbers that go down based on our declining enrollment in ADA, those COLA factors are going to affect that and that deficit spending. So if our COLAs for revenues are going out in the out years, our expenses are still going to occur based on what we're projecting at this point. We also factor in, as Mr. Peshek said, consumer price index projection rates. What's the cost of increases for goods and services expected to go up? And so at this point, based on what we are projecting our expenses are, that increase is just a little bit higher in that out year, which is pretty typical as you get farther out in your projections.
And I understand that, but the year 25, 26, we're only, I'm making air quotes, 13 million. We've done better from where we are now to 24, 25, 25, 26, yay, we're at 13 million in the hole. And then we go back to 15.
Yeah, a lot of that, because the other component of this, because this is a snapshot of the entire general fund, both restricted and unrestricted. As we've discussed, our special ed costs continue to go up, but those revenues, at least from the state and federal level that we get for those programs, doesn't necessarily increase at the same rate. And so in the projection, it's just that we now have to contribute more from the unrestricted general fund to continue operating that program, and that affects the deficit spending levels.
And we're, that's a mandated program with a mandated.
It's an unfunded mandate, yes.
Mandate. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question?
Well,
Dr. Moore and Mr. Messina, Mr. Messina, and
I
then
had
Dr. Moore?
I had somebody send me a link to an article written by Dan Walters out of MSNBC or MSN, and they're looking at when the governor put his budget forward, he didn't take the recession or potential recession into account at all, and looking at the stagnant taxes and tax increases and what have you, they're talking about 27, 28 being over $81 billion in the hole. So I've learned in sitting in this seat that even when you're talking about that far out, it comes up pretty fast. And he hasn't hit it yet. The LAO has, but he hasn't hit it yet.
When did they say that?
It just came out in the last day, and they're saying because of the things he didn't look at and didn't include in his projection, and they've kind of reworked it. When we get out to 27, 28, it will be as high, and you never know. I mean, but they say it will be as high as 81 billion.
Thank you, Mr. Peshek. So you see I have the multi-year projections side by side because it's hard to look at it without putting them side by side to just see where some of the changes are happening. And I appreciate the in-between explaining what the changes are that impact what's happening on the multi-year projections side by side. But my question as I'm looking at it, and I know you did also probably look at it the same way. The December 15th and the January 17th are the two I want to draw our attention to. I am looking at the projected revenue is the same in both. I am looking at the expenditures, and I know we've talked about why that expenditure change happened there. But I see it in 23, 24 going up, not as much in 23, 24 on the January 17th, which is good. So the deficit number goes down on the January 17th versus the December 15th. However, the fund balance doesn't go up. And to me, when I'm doing the math, if we start it with the fund balance the same, that number has to go up. You see what are you following where I'm at? So I'm wondering what didn't happen there. I see your face, so you see exactly what I'm saying.
No, I'm still trying to see
No?
what you're saying,
Okay.
Dr. Moore.
So I'm looking at this one, multi-year projection, December 15th, and I'm looking at fiscal stabilization plan, January 17th. I'm looking at the 23-24 column, revenues the same across both. Expenditures different, that's okay. And I was saying, I know why the expenditure is so much more from the adopted in June. That is what it is. But the deficit amount, when you subtract the revenue or the revenue from expenditures, it's 26 million on the December 15th. It's 21 million on the January 17th. You with me?
I am.
And then the fund balance line should therefore be larger on the 23-24 January 17th. It can't be smaller, and somehow it is. The beginning fund
beginning.
balance.
Beginning fund balance, I'm sorry.
I see.
And so, of course, that impacts everything else.
So it's better if you rip them apart like she did and compare them?
So I just wanted to look at, because I know mistakes can happen in these numbers. And this is so important because as we look at the fiscal stabilization plan, the piece that you're asking us to approve tonight, 21 million of that is people, right? And I've explained on multiple occasions how painful that is for me. So I can't have these numbers have any questions about anything not being exactly right.
Yeah, Dr. Moore, I mean, these numbers are changing into each one of these times.
Yes, Brittany, maybe you can help me. And I know we have to do this tonight because we have a January 31st deadline. So I want to say I will trust that between now and January 31st, when this has to be submitted, we'll find what the difference is, and if it is to the positive, all the better. I don't want to have us have to have you go through budget Excel spreadsheets in this meeting to figure that out, but
Yeah, absolutely.
then amend it. Okay. All right.
Has there just been a mistake in math?
Likely, but I'm not sure. And
Not sure either.
But I trust that in 2 weeks before it's done, you'll let me know. I can move on it tonight with that understanding that it will be looked at again with the fine tooth comb to see why that number would be different. We don't have to do it now.
You're referring to the beginning fund balance for 23-24 on page 15 and page 21, correct? It's about $1 million difference.
Which
We would still
ripple
certify
effect.
positively because it rolls forward each year. Mathematically, it looks like it's rolling forward correctly. Looks like the big question is, should the beginning fund balance be 115 million or 116 million? And so we would still have a positive certification in the third year, 26-27. The detriment would be $1 million, so if anything, the 8 million would be 7 million, so it'd still be a positive certification.
Or would the 8 million be 9 million?
Could be 9.
Right.
But I think Dr. Moore's point is that we need to be absolutely sure that our numbers are
So,
correct.
And I know it's living.
now I understand what your question was, Dr. Moore. I have an answer for you. I don't need to go through a bunch of calculations.
Okay.
So I think Brittany probably will know what I'm about to say now that she's done the same thing.
Okay.
And then
So
math.
December 15th,
Yes.
first interim.
Yes.
If you refer back to the first interim report that was adopted on December 15th,
Yes.
that is the number, 116, 180, 141, starting balance,
First interim.
first interim.
Yes.
Ms. Krasinski and I have been actively working on this for the last month since that time period. And there is a minor adjustment there that that was shared with me on the most recent multi-year projection at the 115, 108, 953.
Okay, so our,
That's why those two numbers are different.
so we have $1 million difference.
$1 million less.
We will look into that
Okay,
more specifically.
because I need to
Between
know
the
what
two
it
documents,
is.
there was a-
But it's $1 million less. It's worse.
Right. And so
I
was
hope you
the
were, I was
17.
hoping you were finding something better.
Well, that's what I hope too. I hope that it was, that the 116 was the right number is what I was hoping.
115, 108 is the right number.
So we lost there. We lost from the 322 million to the 337 million. Okay. You'll let us know why.
Yes, absolutely.
The ending fund balance is different. Okay. Okay. Mr. Peshek, what page are we on now that I've ripped mine apart?
So we are to slide 22 of 25,
Okay.
almost to the end.
Thank you. Give me a
And I
second.
just want to share with the board and the public, we have last week received another letter from LACO, and it is regards to their review of the first interim letter. And there were two additional statements that they placed in the first interim letter that were not contained in the budget adoption letter. One is a caution about increasing any new expenditures. And two, we need to specifically focus on addressing our increases to special education expenditures, as I have already shared.
How can we do that if it's mandated?
They're asking us to do the work that I alluded to a few minutes ago, and we're going to work with that special ed team and look at operationally how we can support them in being more efficient.
Okay.
I think our goal, one of our primary motivations moving forward is to maintain the high quality of programs that we offer through our special education, but we need to get a handle on the increasing costs. We need to actually level off. I think the costs will continue increasing, but we need to level those costs off. And we've begun some intensive conversations about that already, and hopeful that we can make some progress.
Okay, I'm on the right page now.
And this is just a representation of the concern that we have and that LACO has shared, as you can see, year after year. And when those costs as an unfunded mandate continue to increase, the general fund has to contribute, which means less resources for other programs and other priorities the district may establish. Looking ahead, we'll have another update on March 13th for the second interim report. We'll see the governor's May revise, we're estimating by the 15th at the latest. And budget adoption will occur on June 26th. If there are no further additional questions at this time, we request that the board approve the fiscal stabilization plan so that staff may forward it on to the county.
Move to adopt resolution number 23/24-18 approving the district's proposed fiscal stability plan.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. My pages were pulled apart.
Sorry.
Diane Zimmerman. No, I understand. You were under papers that I pulled apart. You may begin.
Microphone. You're,
Through new leases and renegotiations, as well as updating civic center fees to more closely affect actual cost. More than $21 million saved through layoffs and not filling otherwise open positions. More than $10 million saved in reductions in general fund expenditures. Approximately $2.7 million saved via transferring funds between different budgets. And more than $8 million saved through the reduction of programs. 44.7 million dollars. This mean all these original expenses were possibly frivolous? All these jobs were a bad idea in the first place, so they are no longer needed? I think we really need to have some explanations. And what programs are no longer needed to the tune of $8 million? Just saying, personally, I would like to see a whole lot more explanation before this is rammed through. And rammed through seems to be exactly what you're doing. Also, I don't think any of you paid any attention to Mr. Messina when he spoke of the $81 billion. I happen to have heard on that through New California State on Monday night Zoom, Sunday night's Zoom meeting. So that's quite a huge amount of money to be like off of. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get you guys. You don't have to do this tonight. What is it? What is it with you? I just don't get it. But of course, thank you.
Point of clarification, Ms. Zimmerman, the comment that was made by Mr. Messina was to indicate that there is a possibility that the state will see additional cuts, excuse me, I'm going to finish this, and therefore the district is responding by resizing in recognition of the fact that we do believe that it's possible that the current projections are too optimistic. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion by Mr. Jensen? We have a second by someone? Anyone?
Made a motion.
I will provide an update to the board on the reasoning behind that variance.
Go in a direction and use the numbers we have and update.
Yes.
The deadline, we have to have it done by January 31st.
Not set in stone. Once the county gets the letter, we need to make
So we will be submitting the plan to the county, and we'll be going through probably a deeper dive with them.
We don't have another meeting until after the deadline, so
It's a living document. It's going to change either way.
I believe that one of the understandable greatest concerns is about making decisions that involve people and their jobs. And the process of reductions in force, there will be another opportunity, there must be, for the board to revisit and take action on that. These other items are talking about the ability for us to begin resizing and moving on some of these other issues. May I ask, Dr. Moore, would it help with, we do need to nail down these specific questions. Would it be help to, on those specific questions that you've identified and any other that come up, that we could return at the next meeting on those specific budget questions, and then, you know, we in open session be able to respond to those as well and bring some clarification?
That would help. The details of, I know it's just $1 million, but it's just $1 million, and that's a lot more than I have ever seen.
I'd like to have just $1 million.
Right, right. Yes, it has to come. I have to be able to live with the decision that we're making.
So we have a motion.
It's extremely hard.
We have a second.
I'll do a second because we
Okay.
have to have it in by the 31st, right?
Okay, so Mr. Jensen moved and Mr. Messina seconded that we approve this now, but we can revise it before the 31st. Am I understanding that? No.
No.
No, it's set in stone once we say it.
What is submitted is set in stone.
Correct.
But this is a budget that can always be changed.
It can. It
And,
can be
and Dr.
revised
Moore
in
has
the
a question
future.
about the $1 million difference. And Ralph, you're going to be looking into that, and you're going to
Correct.
provide an update on that at the next meeting.
Yes. I apologize, I was not prepared to answer that question this evening.
Okay, so we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
Did not vote.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. You don't need my vote to pass it.
Are you abstaining?
I am. Because I don't know the answer to my question, and only for that reason, I'm not going to be able to vote on it right now. But I trust that the work will happen, so I'm a no.
So you're a no? So, okay, so we have, I haven't voted yet. President votes yes. So it's a 4-3 vote?
4-1.
4-1 vote, I'm sorry. Thank you. The next is Mr. Peshek. Thank you. Brittany, thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Staff has monitored district legal fees on a consistent basis and has expressed concern over the need to reduce those fees. Over the span of the last 6 fiscal years, the district average approximately $1.6 million in legal fees per year. Our high occurred in 2018 was 2.2 million and a low in 2017 of 1.13 million. In discussion with our legal teams from multiple firms, one new concept occurred: flat rate legal fees.
Say that twice.
I had trouble enough on the first one. We negotiated a fixed rate contract. We negotiate fixed rate contracts in other programs and operations, and it made sense to explore this option with legal fees. Fagan, Friedman, and Fullfrost LLP, also known as F3, presented the district with a proposal that, based on historical uses and expenditures, will reduce our projected legal budget by approximately 20% per year over the course of the contract. Staff respectfully recommends that the board approve item 9F to enter into a fixed fee legal agreement with Fagan, Friedman, Fullfrost LLP. And Dr. Moore, anecdotally, I am pleased to report that it was 20% versus the much smaller number that I
So
had
moved.
projected before.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Moore, second by Mr. Messina. Glenda.
for the LLP. 3 Fs, have they been your attorneys and how long? Are they new attorneys? Any answer? I mean, I don't think you should approve anything if
Wait a minute, wait a minute, what's
we do not know, if we do not know if these are new attorneys
They've
or
been our
attorneys that we've
attorneys a
had on.
long time.
Yeah, a long time.
They have been a long
Many,
time.
many years.
We've approved.
Okay, so they also are the attorneys for workers' compensation as well, right?
They've been an attorney for many things that we do.
Good, nice to know, because I was told that you guys fired him.
Have a motion? I'm sorry, I forgot who made the motion. I'm sorry, Dr. Moore moved, and who seconded?
I'll
Mr.
second it.
Messina?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
And the president says aye. Thank you. Moving on to G. And G is Mr. Peshek.
School facility fees levied against new residential, commercial, and industrial development are used only to finance school facility necessary to accommodate students generated from such new developments, including but not limited to all costs associated with construction and modernization, providing additional space and interim housing, cost to perform studies and findings and determinations by law, pay bonds, notes, loans, leases, and other installment agreements, finance projects, provide maintenance and repair for facilities which is not regular or routine, and on a small basis, reimburse administrative costs for administrating the program. In accordance with Government Code 66006B1 and 2, the district hereby presents the following information for fiscal year 21-20 for the board's review. A description of the type of reportable fees in the account or sub-accounts of the school district, amounts of reportable fees, beginning and ending balances, reportable fees collected, interest earned, and expenditures of the funds, identification of each district project on which reportable fees were expended, when the district accumulates sufficient funds to complete projects for which it previously identified, a description of each interfund transfer or loan made, and the amount of refunds made pursuant to subsection 6601 and allocations pursuant to subdivision F of 66001. At this time, staff recommends adoption of Resolution 2324-17, approving the annual reportable fees report for fiscal year 22-23.
Move to adopt resolution number 23/24-17, approving the annual reportable fees report for fiscal year 2022-23.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Jensen, second by Dr. Moore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
And the president says aye. Thank you.
Madam President, point of
Yes.
order, we're well past the hour. Do we need to
Yes,
vote on an extension so we don't?
let me see where we are. I don't either. So we need to move a motion to, I'm sorry?
Move to extend the meeting for 30 minutes.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Jensen, second by Dr. Moore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
Student board member?
Aye.
And the president says aye. So,
And I think we need to excuse our student board member.
yes. Thank you so much. Did you drive yourself? Would someone maybe
What?
walk her out?
Heard.
Thank you. Okay, the next we are at Mr. Otofka.
Yes, good
How
evening,
are
Madam
you?
President. Good. How are you?
Good, I'm just fine. Go ahead.
Okay, this is for resolution number 2324-21. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. With the passage of California Senate Bill 328, high schools are required to start classes no earlier than 8:30 a.m. This prompted the William S. Hart Union High School District to examine its lighting needs at various high schools because a later start time equals a later end time. In turn, a later school end time will affect sports activities, which must also start and end at later times. Based on the foregoing, the district proposed lighting projects at Golden Valley High School, West Ranch High School, Saugus High School, Castaic High School, and Hart High School. As detailed in Resolution 2324-21, the district engaged in the CEQA process. CEQA means California Environmental Quality Act. For the proposed project, including but not limited to preparing a draft mitigated negative declaration initial study, MNDIS, seeking comments on the MNDIS from the public and other governmental agencies, preparing responses to all comments received, preparing mitigation measures, and a program for reporting on or monitoring the changes in the project to mitigate or avoid significant environmental effects, and preparing a final MNDIS. Resolution number 2324-21 confirms the steps the district took to comply with CEQA, makes certain findings required by CEQA, approves the final MNDIS, and approves the project. District staff desires the governing board to approve resolution number 2324-21. Are there any questions?
Second.
I'm sorry, who moved? Hey, excuse me. You don't have to be rude. If we've made a mistake, let us know it.
Sorry, what do we do?
Mr. Jensen seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
And Dr. Moore has stepped out for a moment. President says aye. So moved. Okay. Now we're on to I, which is Mr. Otofka.
Proposal for field lighting improvements at 5 district practice fields. On September 14, 2022, the governing board approved design and engineering fees for a project to add field lighting to 5 district high schools, as I just mentioned. The work necessary to proceed with project approval and construction of this project is nearing completion. The plans for the project have been submitted to the Division of State Architect, DSA, and should be approved by DSA shortly. The project will start once DSA approval has been received. Musco Sports Lighting has submitted proposals for the fabrication, construction, and installation of the light assemblies at the 5 schools using Sourcewell contract number 041123-MSL. I want to mention that this project was originally budgeted at $7.5 million, which included the cost of the lights and the engineering fees, which we typically call soft costs, necessary for getting this project engineered and approved. With all of the engineering work completed and this cost proposal from Musco based on that engineering work, the current project budget has been revised down to $6 million, so it's down $1.5 million.
$1 million, thank you.
Since we're still waiting for DSA approval, staff recommends that the board authorize the district superintendent or designee to execute the attached Sourcewell contracts once the project has received approval. Getting your approval in advance will enable us to start the installation sooner once we have DSA approval. We'd like to, it takes about 8 to 12 weeks to get all of this fabricated, and if we can save a couple weeks, we want to get these lights in by the end of the summer, so in the fall, we'll have these lights up.
Move to authorize the district superintendent or designee to execute the attached Sourcewell contracts once the project has received DSA approval.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Jensen, second by Mr. Messina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
The president says aye. Passed. And we did have, oh, never mind. Okay, we're on to J. Mr. Otofka.
This is a proposal for the replacement of the artificial turf field for Canyon High School. This is the artificial turf that the district uses on its fields typically lasts 8 to 10 years. After that time, the artificial turf can no longer be repaired or loses its maintainability and must be replaced. The artificial turf for Canyon High School's football, soccer, lacrosse field was last replaced in 2014. Since Canyon High School is a home stadium for Canyon High School, Golden Valley High School, and sometimes other high schools in the district, this field gets more use than a normal practice field. Replacing the artificial turf is necessary to ensure a safe and optimal playing surface for students and athletes. Staff recommends approving the attached proposal from AFE Sports using the AstroTurf California Multiple Award Schedule, CMAS number 4-20-00-0130A. We've worked with the school's administration, AFE Sports, and AstroTurf and have confirmed that the installation of this field will start on May 13th and will be completed in 4 to 5 weeks. So this will be completed prior to summer. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Go ahead.
So this will finish in 4 to 5 weeks. So I'm glad we're doing this. I know that this was something that I had hoped we could do because of the way that we had to use the field last fall. And will there be any reason to expect any delays that could impact other fields?
No, this is going to be done differently. AFE Sports and AstroTurf are working on this together. The issues we've had previously with AstroTurf is AstroTurf's shortage of labor. AFE Sports does not, as a third party, and does not have that same issue.
Okay.
And they're a licensed, certified installer of AstroTurf.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Move to approve proposal from Astro.
I'm
I
sorry.
do. I have two questions. First of all, how much did we pay for the turf in Valencia? And secondly, you may have said this, I couldn't hear you super clearly. Are we using the same company?
We're using, it's the same turf, it's AstroTurf, the same manufacturer, but it's a different installer. It's a certified installer.
That's what I was wondering.
Yes.
And what did we pay for Valencia, she asked?
I'm not sure what we paid for that because I know that the maintenance and operations was in charge of that, and I think that was a warranty.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was a warranty.
So it's not an apples to apples.
Okay,
But this is typically what it's costing us.
go ahead.
If I recall correctly, it was about half the cost.
Yes.
So is this something that was bid out? I mean, I imagine it was.
This is a CMAS, which it is bid, but it's bid statewide or nationwide. The difference between this project and Valencia is Valencia was a warranty replacement, so I believe we only paid half of what we normally pay.
That's right.
We did. We paid half.
And-
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then because
So
of
that's the reason for the difference. Thank
Yes.
you.
That's correct.
So we have a motion,
Motion by Mr. Jensen.
second by Mr. Messina. Yes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
And the president says aye. So that's passed. We are now to Mr.
I had one more.
Otofka.
Yes.
I just like saying Otofka. I think am I saying it right?
You're saying it perfect.
Go ahead.
This is fee amendment 1 for the geotechnical materials testing and inspection services for the Hart High School varsity softball field at Hart High School. The Division of State Architect requires that all structural materials and material assemblies fabricated on and off-site be tested and approved to meet minimum standards before being incorporated into any school building structure. Ninyu and Moore, the special inspection company and lab of record for this project, is requesting additional fees for the Hart High School varsity softball field due to additional inspection services, and I can detail that for you if you'd like me to. The district must initially cover the additional costs for retesting and inspections, though it can seek reimbursement from the contractor after completion. Are there any questions?
Move to approve the fee amendment number 1 from Inyo and Moore for the Division of State Architect Geotechnical Materials Testing and Inspection Services for the Hart High School varsity softball field project.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Moore, second by Mr. Messina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
And the president says aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Good night.
Otofka. Next, we have, I'm sorry, I can't read this. I'm going back to,
Second reading.
Of board policies.
okay, thank you. Mine got cut off here. Well, not cut off, I just can't see who I'm calling on. Thank you, Dr. Vieira.
Sure, no problem. It's recommended the board approve the following revisions to 2 board policies and 1 administrative regulation after a first reading was presented at the December 6th meeting. These are based on recommendations from the California School Boards Association. First is a recommendation to delete current board policy 6183 and then add new administrative regulation 6183, both with the title Home and Hospital Instruction. The regulation contains all updated regulations and ed codes regarding home and hospital instruction. The other revision includes changing the board policy number and title only for current policy 3360, business and non-instructional operations, and changing it to policy 3314.6, formula account funds. These revisions will then match the CSBA board policy gamut manual for the state of California, and it's recommended that the board approve these proposed revisions.
I have a question. For clarity, because as the board president brought up earlier, what's a BP and what's an AR? I thought BP was a gas station. I didn't.
Board policy and administrative regulation.
Right, but what's the difference between the two? They have the same exact titles, they just have different.
The policy is more of a general overall policy. We'll give some of the background of it, and the regulation is then usually how it's implemented.
Okay, so the BP is when the board puts a policy in place, this is what we want to see happen. The AR is how they carry that out.
Correct.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Moore,
Second.
second by Mr. Messina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
And the president says aye. Thank you so much. We are moving on to the consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
I have a, sorry. And we have no speakers. I just want to say that in the consent calendar, we have $40,000 given to the Hart District by various companies, peoples, families, for different schools. It's in the consent calendar. I just want to say thank you to those people that some were $50 and some were a lot more. I want to thank those people for contributing money to their school district. Besides that, do I have a second?
It's second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Jensen, second by Mr. Messina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson?
Aye.
And the president says aye. So we are now to,
Items for future consideration?
yes,
I don't have any. Not right now.
I have none right now.
I'd like to look into the, I'm sorry, Dr. Moore.
I mentioned mine earlier related to the attendance.
And I'd like to look into making sure that we have available that sheriff video on the shooting. Maybe at staff meetings or something like that, but I would like to see all of the staff see that. I thought it was very informative, it's short, and I thought it was very good. So that's.
Move to adjourn at 11:07.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Jensen, second by everybody. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson,
She's already
I'm just
gone.
kidding. Aye.
congratulations on the
She's
baby.
playing with the baby. She could be.